would you rather that an entire class of school children, let's say somewhere in Africa, would you rather that an entire class of school children in Africa was turned into werewolves, somewhere where, if anything, is probably safer for them, or that you were turned into a were-goldfish?
All right, do we want to roll on this bullshit?
I don't even know. What is he fucking asking? A classroom full of
what the hell is a were-goldfish?
No, that's where you went? I can wrap my brain around a were-goldfish. I cannot wrap my brain around why specifically children in Africa are safer as werewolves than they are here.
Yeah, because they're in Africa and not here, so they're safer directly to us. Remember, it's Terry.
I don't... Fuck. All right, roll.
Yeah, let's roll. I got a 12.
I got a 16. I'm not going to be a were-goldfish. I'm sorry. I'm going to put that on the children.
Really? A class full of
when the moon turns full,
children.
You're goddamn right I will.
In
because
the Sahara.
Yes, when the moon goes full for me, I will then all of a sudden suffocate on dry land, and no one will know what the fuck is happening. I'm sorry. I need to.
What if you have your nice little hybrid mode where you just need to stay wet?
Dan, I have news for you. I'm always wet.
Gross.
It's a Mimic, the Roundtable Dungeons & Dragons discussion podcast, where you never know what you're going to get.
Welcome to another episode in our conversation on mob mentalities, where we look at some of the shifty humanoids out there that can make up enemy armies in Dungeons & Dragons. I'm Dan, and with me today is Adam.
Hello.
And this episode is called Lycanthrope Packs Having the Wherewithal.
I was so fucking proud of that one.
You should be, man. That was pretty good.
Yeah.
That was pretty good. So anyways, we've reached out to our army of hairy friends. All of them are hairy, including Megan. And allies. Especially Megan. And
Brad is weirdly smooth like a dolphin, though.
Kinda. Yeah, maybe he is a weird goldfish. He's always kind of...
No, he's some sort of hairless man dolphin.
Oh, okay. Anyways, we've reached out to them for help with all... God damn it, Adam. I'm not even through the intro. And you derailed me. So we've reached out to our army of hairy fiends and allies to help us break down what Lycanthrope packs look like in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Adam, we need to talk specifically about what lycanthropy is first.
Sure.
Before we move on. Now, lycanthropy is an old word. I nerded the fuck out about this for, I don't know, a couple weeks. About exactly where, the origins of the word lycanthropy came from. Would you like to know some of that information?
Yeah. I am always into etymology, weirdly enough.
Okay.
So hit me.
So, the word lycanthropy has been around for literally millennia. First being mentioned by the Roman courtier, Gaius Petronius Arbiter.
Courtier, but okay.
Yeah. Who served under Emperor Nero of Rome. This guy was the emperor of Rome around the time they were hanging people on crosses. And then that one guy got back up again, but we're not going to talk about that now.
Sure.
Yeah.
Was he a lycanthrope? Was he bitten by a god? Capital G?
Like I said, we're not going to talk about that now. Anyways, Gaius Petronius, who is commonly referred to as Petronius.
We wouldn't have Easter if they'd used silver nails. Oh,
God
I feel
damn,
bad.
Adam.
I feel dirty.
Ooh, we just went through Easter and you dropped that one?
Yeah, I did.
Really?
All right.
Oh.
Okay. Hey, I went through all the zombie episodes without mentioning it.
Okay, fair. Yeah, that's good. Anyways, Petronius was a renowned judge, but he did live a bit of a peculiar life. He would sleep exclusively during the day, and at night would engage in his business, which was lawmaking, law officiating, and writing, as well as his own pleasures. And I'm not kidding you, when I looked up a biography of Petronius, it actually had the word pleasures in quotations, and I went, the fuck?
This guy, I'm not kidding, obsesses over laws and rules, does a whole lot of writing and reading and stuff, sleeps all day, up all night, totally into hedonistic lifestyle.
Oh, remember, Nero is known. I'm not sure of your knowledge of who Nero is.
Oh, yeah. But
Nero was the guy who gave a lordship to his horse and forced people to worship his horse because his horse was his best friend, and he claimed that the horse talked to him. He threw a party so extravagant for the birthday of his horse that it bankrupt the Roman Empire for months.
All I can picture is freaking Nandor the Relentless
Oh, yes.
with his horse, Jean. For those of you listening that have not seen What We Do in the Shadows,
Watch.
very, very, very.
But
Anyway, no. My point was, I think that I might be this
Petronius?
Yeah, Expecto Patronus.
Yeah, something like that. Anyways, but one of the things about Petronius is he was part of Nero's inner circle. So during all of the parties and orgies and hedonistic lifestyle that Nero involved himself in, this guy Petronius was also involved in that.
Who would be my Nero?
Dave?
No, Dave wouldn't give a fuck about a horse.
Terry?
Terry would fuck a horse. Give a fuck about a horse.
Anyways, so Petronius was the first to coin the term lycanthropy, having used the term to describe the effects of a plague that was surging across Rome at the time. Now, this plague, the way it kind of played out was people would be afraid of coming out during the day, would be incredibly violent and sore, and would howl often at night, so towards the moon. There is a disease, Adam, where the sun...
Is it lupus?
No.
But like, you know how like if you have
lupus has so many different forms.
Yeah, but there's a kind of lupus where you can't be out in the sunlight, right?
Yeah, it is kind of like that. Yeah,
and I'm thinking of the word lupine.
Yep.
Is it like
same origins? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
But there is a modern day. We understand it differently, but this you mentioned it with lupus, but there are other ways, other diseases that do it where you become incredibly sensitive to the rays of the sun, to UV light, and you actually blister.
Gingivitis.
Yeah. Something you suffer from a little bit more than I do, but not
a
much
lot more. I'm not kidding. Like, can you see? I have a faint sun. It was March, and I was getting a sunburn outside.
I've gotten a sunburn in perfect shade, fully covered.
So I had a sunburn inside once.
Yeah, me too. Anyways, so he coined the term lycanthropy to describe this effect, and it kind of stuck. There was this idea of a creature who would take on this violent animalistic tendency, only be awake during the night. And it kind of rolled on from there into European folklore. And this is where we see a lot of what we see as the werewolves come in. And it features prominently in fairy tales, wives' tales, and whispered horrors lurking deep in the darkest wood. This resulted in the werewolf then being transplanted into the U.S., with several other types of cryptids, which are weird supernatural creatures. Yeah. Sasquatch fits in there. The chupacabra. They're technically...
It's non-religious magical creatures.
Exactly. But this idea of the man being cursed into a beast narrative really began to take to new levels once it came over to the Americas. Notable inclusions to all of this are, of course, Bram Stoker's involvement with the werewolf, where he incorporated this ability to shift into a wolf to his vampiric creation, Dracula. That's Dracula, sorry. Because of Stoker's Eastern European upbringing. One thing I noticed as well during this time that, in my research, that this was also during the time of the Salem witch trials. During the time of the Salem witch trials, Switzerland was doing its own kind of thing that was not really associated with witches, but was specifically associated with lycanthropes, where they were finding many farmers, isolationists, people who were overly aggressive, and, to be historically thorough, those with disabilities, including and specifically those with Down syndrome. They were being put to trial and murdered under false claims of lycanthropy.
Yikes.
Yeah. Now, isolated from all this, back in the Americas, we also had Native American lore, which helped build this level of man being cursed to turn into beast in their spirituality, depending on which tribe and which area you are from.
Yeah, I mean...
You look at things like the Wendigo, which is a hunter who had consumed so much of human flesh that he took on supernatural powers. The Macabre, which were witches, literally in wolf's clothing. Also, you go over to Haiti, where you have the spirits of the red eyes, literally called the Gerouge, which possess the unwitting and force them to turn into lupine cannibals. So, as we could see, this idea of man being cursed to turn into something, being possessed to turn into something bestial and violent, really, really has a strong base. I like werewolves and lycanthropy more than I like vampires. I've said that on the podcast before. I will state it now. The idea of the werewolf, the lycanthrope, and D&D, we get many different flavors of it with the were-tigers and were-boars and were-pigs, and were-ravens and stuff that pop up in some things. We really get a good full flavor of lycanthropes. Now, vampires are typically stronger in D&D for some reason, but or at least we get this really strong support of lycanthropes, but we don't really get a strong presence of lycanthropes.
Yeah, okay. Before we get into that, I want to circle back to pop culture for a minute.
Sure.
So, in all of your research, so here's what I know. Okay, Lon Chaney, of course, is the Wolfman.
Yeah, the Wolfman. Yeah,
right. He's not the werewolf. He is the Wolfman.
The Wolfman. Yeah,
right. Benicio del Toro is as well, but that was a terrible remake. We've had a number of really shitty horror movies over the last 30 years. People will yell at me about some of them were good, but if you go back, American Werewolf in Paris and London, they don't hold up the same way that you feel like they should. I mean, there's Wolfman versus Frankenstein, right? Is another one that doesn't quite, like, it's a little campier. I think Abbott and Costello met one. Ginger Snaps.
They do take on this level of comedy to them almost.
They do, because they're so bestial and you can only tell their stories so many times. I mean, even Supernatural and Buffy the Vampire Slayer and stuff that feature werewolves heavily in
fairly
them.
Regularly, yeah.
And there have been others. I think True Blood
has it. They were in Twilight, which I
of course
don't want to. But another good one is Underworld.
Yeah, like they're all over. But how many ways can you tell the story? They're always savage. They're always
big and
bestial.
Bestial, yeah.
They're fast. They're vicious. And we see this in pop culture all the time. I'm really happy to see it in other ways because we've seen Werebear, for example, was in The Hobbit.
Yep.
We've had, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is that same story, just different.
Yep.
So is the Incredible Hulk. The ability to transform into something big and vicious and nasty against your will, and you have little to no memory of it afterwards. Or that you have to hide it. You wake up in tattered clothes and whatnot. This is a constant theme. When we're dealing with lycanthropy, the theme here that people will go to is a transformation and the moonlight, and I'm sure you're going to talk about all that shit in a minute here. But the real conversation, the reason that it is so pervasive in our cultures, and not just like our culture, but across all of these cultures that you've mentioned, is the fact that it deals with the base animal urges, the nature that is deep within the human soul that we struggle with, right? They are very much about, I wonder, does succubi share origins with lycanthropes, right? Like, if you were to go back far enough, the ideas of these base urges and whatnot coming out, we see it everywhere. In
this loss of control.
Yeah. And sometimes it's revered. And sometimes you tap into it. You mentioned the Native American curses, like the Wendigo, but a lot of times they have spirit animals, which could be a wolf, that they embody aspects of the wolf, and it makes them stronger and more powerful. We see that with druids and whatnot in the game, which is a very different side of the same coin, right?
Yeah, very much so.
So when you're dealing with lycanthropy specifically in your D&D game, it's worth thinking about the themes that you're bringing to the table. And it's not just, there's a murder, hunt down the werewolf. You can do that at surface level. But I think it's really worthwhile to look into what it means to be of this dual nature. We're going to talk a little bit about shifters and stuff in the next episode, which is the race from Eberron, which are all beast touched, I think they were originally called. But it's something to really think about. It's not like vampires. I find that vampires are one note. You know what you're getting into with a vampire. Yeah. But the different kinds of were creatures give you a very different flavor.
Yeah. That's why, for those who have been listening to the previous episodes, we will see a little bit of a difference in format for the next two, at least, while we cover Lycanthropes, because they are so different that they are a mob, but have some unique aspects.
You're not going to see them intermixing.
You're not going to see...
Except in Eberron.
Yeah.
Which has its own unique, crazy rules, which we'll touch on later.
Anyways, I want to actually get to some of the what we have in 5e for them now that we're moving on past the lore, except for, actually, no, I want to talk about Silver real quick.
Okay.
Now, Silver, when you talk about Lycanthropes, when you talk about the pop culture of it, everyone's all like, just get a silver bullet. We see this in...
Everything,
right? Do you know why silver, Adam?
No.
Okay, well, silver, specifically silver, has always been had a connotation with the pure and the blessed.
Well, yes, I know that it's got the 40 pieces of silver and whatnot as well. It's got biblical references.
It's got biblical references, but because of its clarity of a metal, even in medieval times, it was seen as a symbol of purity, more so than gold was.
Does it not mix with other metals?
It does, I think.
I wonder why.
I wouldn't know off the top of my head.
I wonder why it's considered to be so pure. I do know that the idea that a vampire's reflection cannot be seen in a mirror is because back then it was silver-backed mirrors.
Exactly.
Right?
Well, and this goes hand in hand. Because silver was seen as blessed and pure, and lycanthropes, vampires, were seen as cursed and vile, they were often already associated with each other for that, right?
Yeah, it's polar
and that's
opposites.
just because and that's just because of superstitions and stuff like that. Now, legends of werewolves being forced back into their human forms because of silver placed on their person, or being dispatched with the traditional silver bullet, began showing up pre-18th century lore, which is when you were getting those Switzerland lycanthropy trials.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, silver being a mark for purity is a cause for the metal showing up in many different stat blocks as well. From some devils to ghosts and wraiths react to silver.
Sometimes, yeah.
To our favorite lunar furry boys here. Okay.
Let's never call them that again.
Well, they don't take additional damage from silver, which I don't like in D&D 5e. They do gain damage reduction from non-silvered weapons.
It's straight up immunity.
In some cases, yes. In others, no. With that list I had, it's just a resistance, but yeah, it can be an immunity.
When is it a resistance?
Wraiths. It's
yeah,
right? I'm talking about like the
no,
ones
I mean
in the back.
lycanthropes specifically are immune to silver.
Yeah.
Or to non-silvered magical weapons.
Yes. Now, this comes to a head when we play our D&D, where outside of a campaign where you know you're targeting, or at least a campaign arc where you know you're targeting lycanthropes, silver doesn't have much of a use. And the idea of silver being pure and holy doesn't really make a lot of sense in D&D 5e. So how do you justify the silver to lycanthropes other than that they just don't like it now?
Okay, do you want to know my homebrew?
Yes, I do. I want to know the homebrew reason.
Okay, so I have actually 3 kinds of weapons that you can use, and you probably have heard me say this in my own games, but it's never come up. So there's silver, and then there is wrought iron.
Okay.
And then there's petrified wood. All 3 of them are specifically used for magical things. For me, silver is because of the silvery moon, and it's magic. It's just pure magic.
Okay.
The moon, it's not in 5th edition. The moon does not trigger the transformation anymore.
But
and I fucking hate it. So I link them. What?
It does in some lore levels, but not mechanically.
No, mechanically it doesn't. So, so I link it strongly that way with silver. The cold wrought iron for me is used against ghosts. I pulled that right out of
Supernatural.
Well, the same place as Supernatural pulled it out of, right? Like the same lore and legends when it comes to incorporeal creatures and whatnot. When you hit them, it turns them invisible and they're stunned for a round. So they essentially go to the ethereal plane.
Yeah.
And then they come back in a round later. So it gives you a reprieve for a moment. And then petrified wood is used specifically for holy symbols and druidic purposes and whatnot. I also have steel wood and things like that, which an iron wood is a common one.
Yeah.
So to get druids around their bizarre
Which
limitations.
is a holdover from previous edition.
Yeah, and we're seeing with Lycanthropy holdover from previous lore as well, much to the downfall of Dungeons and Dragons campaigns, in my opinion.
Yeah, right? And that's kind of where I go with it.
So we're muddying the waters quite a bit on this already before we've even jumped into any stat blocks.
Yeah.
The ones that exist in 5th edition lore are when you get cursed by someone who puts a legitimate curse on you, like a hag would.
Yep.
Then there are those who are bitten.
Yep.
And then there are those who are bred.
Yeah.
And you need just a remove curse spell for either of the first two, but if you are true bred
You need a
Lycanthrope,
wish.
you need a wish.
Yeah.
A wish spell to do it, right? So that's massive.
Mm-hmm.
We start to see that play out a little bit further down the genealogy with shifters, which again, we'll talk about next episode. But do you play them differently? The curse from a hag, for example, versus the bite from a werewolf?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, the curse from a hag versus bit is usually a victim in a way, right? That is somebody who doesn't understand what they're doing. And you have the option in D&D to be the guy who, and they kind of have some lore around it where if you are able to resist the lycanthropy curse, not resist it so that you're free of it, but resist it so that you could subdue the urges, right? Those who subdue the urges tend to be isolationists because they know if they break their will, they could go, right?
My problem with this right off the bat is there's no penalty for doing that.
Other than being isolated from society.
Yeah, okay. The ranger in the party that got bitten that just said, I'm not going to turn. What the fuck was that? There's not even a save for that.
Yes. No, I agree with that. There needs to be, if you infect your player with lycanthropy, there needs to be a save.
There should be massive penalties, but because they talk about if you accept it, if you embrace the lycanthropy, you
become a master of the curse and you can shift at will, basically.
Yeah, which means that you can't shift at will otherwise. That's implied but not stated anywhere.
Yep.
And additionally, your alignment changes.
Towards evil.
Well, unless you're a werebear or a were-tiger. Like but it shifts to whatever it is that you're shifting into. But does it fucking matter? And should we stick to that? We're going to talk about this later.
We are going to talk about this later.
So it's very muddy. It's very strange. I'll tell you this right now. The curse of lycanthropy for me is a separate curse. Remove curse does not get rid of it in my world. You need remove lycanthropy, the spell. And the only people that can do it, the same way that if you get petrified by a Medusa's stare, the Medusa has to set you free. That's not a death sentence in my world.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that's fair to the players, that it's a 2-save death. The same thing with lycanthropy, but you need that person to undo that curse, right? And it's 9th level magic. It's a big deal for me, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't quite put it up as at 9th level to remove a lycanthropy curse.
I just don't want Greater Restoration to fix it or heal. I want it to be
I
wish.
mean, yes, no, I understand wanting it to be difficult to remove, and I agree. Greater Restoration, heal, those higher level spells shouldn't do it. Making it its own ritual outside of normal spellcasting is how I would do it, because it is going to be one of those types of curses.
Right, but that's why I make it 9th level spell. Like your guys can't do it on their own. They need to go then appease the hag or whoever it is that did it and sit there during a weird ritual to undo this magic, and she blows a 9th level spell slot. Your guys cannot do this on their own. It's an NPC undo only, and that's plot hook for me. That's why I play it that way. Remove curse is meant for when you got bitten by a werewolf.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one. I'm with you on that one. So if it's a placed curse, it's a big deal. But depending on the hag, depending on the level of curse, depending on where
the campaign and the players, but
there's a lot of asterisks to this.
But yes,
sure. But I do agree that, like death, lycanthropy is too easy to, like typical lycanthropy is too easy to subvert in 5th edition.
Yeah.
So I would make it a lot more difficult, but having some sort of pre-planned at least as a DM, a pre-planned ritual to break the type of lycanthropy I've infected my party with as a campaign arc, then I would much rather do that than just be like, all right, so the cleric sleeps, and what do you guys want to do next?
Exactly, right. It's too damn easy. But then again, the way that I do it, it's damned hard, and it's adventure hook. Like,
Yeah.
you're gonna spend 3 or 4 sessions.
Oh yes, 100%.
Doing this. But I think it needs to be that. The same way that when you're dealing with silvered weapons and whatnot, how do you tell your players that they need silver weapons? That's why I always have silver, cold iron, and petrified wood weapons in every weapon shop ever. Right.
One of the previous editions, I think it was 3.5, mithril weapons had the same effect as silvered.
Was it mithril? They had another one. There was a fucking dragon steel or something.
Yeah, there's also in 5e the moon-touched weapons.
Yeah, that's what it was. That was what it was. And I'm like, what the fuck is... You know what? It's too much. It's too much. But I'm going to say it's not enough for it to be a silvered weapon. Remember, it's they're immune to non-magical silvered weapons. It has to be a magical weapon that
And
is silver.
Yeah.
Like, that's intense to do that. And instead of you trying to get a silver arrowhead on your magical bow or whatever, I would look at it the other way around. Guys, there's a spell called Ceremony that clerics get, where they have a whole bunch of different rituals that they can do and whatnot.
Yeah.
Simply use that to bless silver weapons.
Yes, yeah.
I like that better because now you're incorporating the divine magic into it, which is, we're going back to the idea of this good versus evil.
And can I just say that if you are using the spell ceremony to deal with anything, it is not going to be I'm just going to cast ceremony. Here's the effect. No, man, there's story to this.
And again, the NPC is going to be the one that has to do it. It's a specific thing that's not listed under ceremony.
I would say that a player can do it, but there is going to be a lot of ingredients to that recipe outside of, right?
Sure. However you're going to play it, you make it a plot hook, right?
Yeah. So, moving on, I do want to say real quick what the types of lycanthropy are, or so the types of werewolf are that we've kind of touched on here. The forms specifically.
Sure.
Each lycanthrope has 3 distinct forms.
Yeah.
They have their natural form, which is basically a slightly bigger, I wouldn't say it's as big as dire, but a slightly bigger, more feral version of the natural animal. So
not enough to change their size category, but enough that you can look at it and be like, oh, that one's different.
That one's different, yeah. Now, when it comes to changing into the natural form, they still retain a lot of their intellectual abilities.
They retain everything except for, I think, size and or AC, depending on which kind of lycanthrope.
Exactly, right? So you will you might see just a normal bear, but this thing's planning, this thing has intelligence, it has strategy to it. So just so you guys know. The second form is their straight up humanoid form. Now, their humanoid form has some slight characteristics of their...
Werebears, a werebear man has a hairy chest, right?
Maybe a darkened nose that is always a little moist or something like that, right? Like,
yeah, a wererat's going to have big front teeth.
Yeah, you'll be able... a Wereboar is going to have tusks, but for the most part...
Would you give the human tusks?
I would give them... like tiny tusks, not half-orc tusks, but tusks.
I wouldn't even give them tusks. I would just describe them as snorting, right? Like, they just have like weird breathing as they're moving around.
And they eat messily.
Yeah, right.
Right,
so,
like the traits don't necessarily have to be purely physical.
It can be behavioral traits
as well. Now, those who master their lycanthropy can have this thing called the hybrid form, and the hybrid form is where all of the benefits of the two kind of meld together, and they become the distinct were creature we are used to now.
The wolfman,
the bear, the werebear, the sniveling wererat that looks like a bipedal animal that is wielding a weapon and wearing armor, right? Now, the way you can change from form to form in D&D 5e is...
burn in action.
Burn in action, you could do it, right? That's what it says as the monsters. There is lore saying that there are some who have the curse that have resisted it that are still drawn by the full moon to change without a save. They just have to, right? The power of the full moon is too great for them to resist it. However, they still feel the draw to change on every other night. They are just able to resist it.
So I'm going to pause you here. When we're dealing with players who have been cursed with lycanthropy, because that's, as a DM listening to this, that's what I'm looking for, right?
Yeah.
How can I curse my players with this? I want to have this as a plot hook to either have them embrace it or be, at the whim of this curse. So how do I do this? I will tell you right now, I'm going to have to come up with my own rules.
Yep.
If they don't embrace it, then I'm going to sit there and say, all right, are you getting angry? Is your adrenaline up? When you enter combat, you need to make a save.
Okay.
Because you are keeping and it depends on what it is. Werewolf, Wereboar, when they enter combat, they're going to need to make a save.
Yeah.
Right? But for a Werebear, it would be when they get angry. And it's the same thing for a Weretiger. A Wererat would be when they get scared.
Yeah.
Right? So for each one, depending on the kind of lycanthrope that they are, I would have there be a different triggering effect. But the saves will always be roughly the same. And it will be whatever the DC is, depending on what level what tier they're in, right?
Yeah.
But it's always, for me, going to be a charisma save, because every time that you are put to sleep or you have polymorph or any of that, it's always a charisma save, right? It's your force of will.
Mm-hmm.
And followed by a constitution save. And the constitution save has got to be harder. Probably the same, but with disadvantage if you failed the charisma.
Okay.
So if you can just will yourself to stay calm and not be upset, you did it. Okay, no problem.
This is really cool, because then you get your bard carrying around calm emotions just in case you lose control.
Yeah.
Your party knows.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's not a freaking curse, but remember, you did not master it, which means you do not get to go to hybrid form. You become wolf or bear.
Yeah.
And you drop all your items when you do it.
Yeah.
Poof, you're a rat.
That being said, if it is one of these things and the player is really interested in progressing and mastering it and stuff and has to fight this urge, and wants to make that a key component of the character moving forward, work with your player, work with your DM to try to figure out how to make that work.
Yeah,
right?
and honestly,
and choose the campaign, right? If you're doing an aquatic campaign, chances are you're not going to do so well as a Wereboar. Wait for the next character.
Sure. I am going to also remind you, though, that even when you get turned into a rat against your will, you're still intelligent. You have all of your stats.
Yep.
Can you cast spells? You can't when you're polymorphed.
It doesn't say you can't.
I'm going to say that the answer for me is no, right? You do not have the somatic or the language capability to do it.
The thing is, it does say when you change your form, your statistics, other than just your size and AC, are the same in each form.
Right,
so
but your actions and your traits are not.
No,
specifically they're not. Because when you actually look at what the stat blocks are, you do not get some things. Like, for example, Werewolf has pack tactics. Or a wolf does. A werewolf does not gain that when they become a wolf.
Oh.
So traits and actions are different. You cannot swing a great axe as a brown bear.
No, yes. I mean, there's going to be some physical limitations there. Yes,
which means you can't use materials, you can't speak. It says directly you cannot speak, so there's no verbal components, and you can't do somatic movements with fingers and whatnot, even if you've got grizzly bear paws, right? I'm sorry, the answer is no on that for me. You cannot cast spells unless there is literally no component. So if you've got some meta magic that you can use to make it so that you don't need the verbal component and it's the only component listed for the spell, sure, I'll let you get it off, right? But for the most part, no, you can't cast spells. I'm sorry.
In your natural form?
In your natural form. The other thing, too, is that if you're in an anti-magic field, that curse isn't there.
Really?
It's magic. I'm sorry. It's magic. It's a 9th level. For me, it's 9th level curse, right? Even at its most powerful, right?
Yeah.
So
I don't know, man. I place a lot of divinity level stuff, like god level magic, to lycanthropy curses.
Look, vampires alone are CR 13. The highest we get out of this is CR 5.
Yeah.
Lycanthropes are bitches. They just are. By the time that
They've been done dirty, though.
They have been, and I don't like it. It's why I'm making everything harder. And I'm looking at it from more of a plot hook perspective. I don't know. I'm not thrilled with how 5th edition has handled were creatures at all. But that's true of all of D&D. I haven't liked it in any edition. they're always low-level mob, which is weird to me.
Yeah, I get you. Now, the one thing we have talked about, and since we're talking about traits, I want to bring this up now. Non-human lycanthropes. Specifically non-human. Any intelligent humanoid can be a lycanthrope. It does not pick and choose across the board there.
Does it have to be a humanoid? Can your dog get bitten?
It has to be a humanoid.
Okay.
Now, when it comes to the stats based in the book, there's a little blurb there next to Gaston and the Beast fighting.
Yeah.
In the monster manual.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, it's Gaston and the Beast.
Of course it is.
Of course, right?
I'm the beauty.
No, you're not. You're the annoying candle. Because you light up in sunlight because you're a ginger. So anyways, the stats... I'm just getting death glared. Holy shit. Maybe you're the annoying clock guy. Or are you the wardrobe?
I just hate that you don't know their names, you motherfucker. Keep going.
I'm trying to remember their names. Anyways.
Lumiere and Cogsworth, you piece of shit.
Okay, cool.
You have daughters. How do you... keep going.
So to represent a non-human lycanthrope, the stats given in the book represent purely human. So it does say you can add some of these more racial traits to these. So if you have an elven werebear, give it Fey ancestry, right? And that as a DM is you gotta kind of figure out what you're doing there, because the chances of you, like if you give a werebear the half-orc ability to stand back up after you've taken damage,
that's a big deal.
That's a big deal.
But this is how I get around my non-human player characters getting these things, right? Yeah. They get to maintain all of their racial traits that they have, like the ability to get back up and shit like that.
There's actually, I've been doing a lot of straight-up campaign world building recently, mainly because I started DMing a campaign in my own little homebrew world. And gallivanting in the area where my players are right now is a small tribe of orcs who are all Wereboars.
Oh, so it's orcs and porks? Is that what it is?
I mean, pigs and orcs are closely associated anyways.
Well, they totally are. The original design of orcs
Pigmen.
were...
Yeah. So, which is horribly insensitive thing to talk about now. When we cover that in the orc episode. Yeah. So, anyways... moving on, we do want to take care of and cover our most important and the poster boy of lycanthropy, the werewolf. Now, we've talked to Brad. Brad is out there, and he is still in the yawning portal, still talking to Durnan, and he's got some points about werewolves to make.
Thanks, Dan and Adam. Well, I've been talking to Durnan, and I think we're coming up with a plan for me to potentially pay off some of my debts here by taking a delve with some adventurers down into the Dungeon of the Mad Mage. Now, in an attempt to scare me off, and as we always are placing bets around here on adventures going in and out, Durnan has so kindly shared with me a story of a few people who've come out infected by lycanthropy, which seems fitting given the topic of the week. But I'm not here necessarily to talk to you about lycanthropy in general. I'm here to talk to you about a specific lycanthrope. And we're talking about the werewolf today. Now, in most of pop culture, I would consider the werewolf to be the prime example of a lycanthrope. This would be the one that, if you were to ask anybody about lycanthropy, they would just assume that it only applies to werewolves. D&D is another story. Here in this world, werewolfism is just as a specific form of lycanthropy. And not even necessarily the most common. You may run into it more in campaigns and things like that because it's what people are comfortable with, but honestly there's no reason for these to be any more common than any other sort of lycanthrope. So let's talk about the werewolf specific and how it's different from other lycanthropes. So werewolves, they tend to take on the aspect, like all lycanthropes, they take on the aspect of the animal or the lycanthrope that they were infected by. So werewolves tend to resemble a wolf, both in look but also in mannerisms. They're going to be savage, they're going to be temperamental, they're going to have heightened senses. They actually kind of prefer to eat rarer meat. So if somebody's in a human form eating, their meat rare, that might be nothing, but it also might be something to watch out for. If they like their meat a little bloodier, it might be a sign that you're dealing with a lycanthrope, specifically a werewolf. By looking at them, they can take on the form of a humanoid, so their original form. They can take on the form of a wolf, or they can take on a hybrid form. So in their hybrid form, they're going to look like a pretty jacked wolf, basically. A bipedal wolf with six-pack abs, I think is a good way to describe it. These things are going to be well-muscled, well-toned. They're going to have the head of a wolf, but a furry body like that of a humanoid. In that humanoid, or in that hybrid form rather, they can wield weapons, just like their humanoid form. They generally don't tend to want to do that, but they can. So let's dig into the actual stat block for a werewolf. Werewolves check in at a CR of 3. They have a armor class of 11. They average 58 hit points, which is 98 plus 18. They have a 30-foot movement speed in hybrid form, which surprised me. I thought they would get a little bit of a boost in speed. They don't. They only get the boost in speed when they're in their wolf form. They do have a high strength. They have a decent dex. We'll get to some of that in a bit. Their constitution is good. Their intelligence is that of an average human. They have an average wisdom and average charisma. So pretty average across the board with a decent boost in strength and con and a slight boost to their dex. They're skilled in perception and stealth, which makes sense. And interesting immunities here. So they are completely immune to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from non-magical attacks that aren't silvered. So this is your standard Lycanthrope. Can't be harmed unless it's a silvered weapon, or magic in this case. They have a passive perception of 14, so they're going to sense you. That makes sense for something that has ties to wolf. They have the ability Shape Changer, so they can at any point, interesting here in the stat block, it doesn't say about how often they can do this, but they can use an action to polymorph into the hybrid form, the wolf form, or back to its true form, which is its humanoid form. All of the statistics are exactly the same in every single form, except for its AC. So its AC in wolf form will drop to that of a wolf, which we'll cover in a little bit. And in humanoid form, they have an AC of 11, and then a 12 in wolf or hybrid form. They also have the ability Keen Hearing and Smell, which they share with the wolf. Basically, they get advantage on any perception check that relies on hearing or smell. As far as actions, they get a multi-attack in their humanoid or hybrid wolf form. In this case, they can make 2 attacks, one with a spear if it's in humanoid form, or a bite and its claws in hybrid form. So kind of make 2 attacks with the spear in humanoid form, or 1 with the bite and 1 with the claws in hybrid. So the bite, which they can make in hybrid form or wolf form, they get a +4 to hit, dealing an average of 6 damage, 1d8 plus 2, as piercing damage. And if they attack a humanoid and succeed with the bite, you'll have to make a DC 12 Constitution saving throw, or you will be cursed with lycanthropy yourself. They can make a claw attack. Now, with the claw attack, they have a +4 to hit. This is only in the hybrid form, mind you. They have a +4 to hit, and it averages 7 damage, 2d4 plus 2. This does not inflict lycanthropy. It is only through the bite attack that they can inflict it. And as I mentioned earlier, if they're in their humanoid form, they will have a spear. With the spear, they have a +4 to hit again, and dealing an average of 5 damage, 1d6 plus 2. Or, if they want to, it is a versatile weapon as a spear, so they can do two-handed damage for 1d8 plus 2, an average of 6 damage. Now let's compare the werewolf stat block to the wolf stat block, and see if we can draw any parallels. When we look at the wolf has an AC of 13, which is actually higher than they have in a werewolf. So by becoming a werewolf versus just a standard wolf, you actually have a lower AC, which is interesting. Hit points are obviously much beefier for the werewolf. The wolf only hit points of 11 hit points, 2d8 plus 2. But the wolf has a higher base speed. That said, when in wolf form, the werewolf will have the 40-foot movement of a standard wolf. So the stat blocks are actually somewhat close. There's a hit to strength for the wolf, right? The werewolf is going to have a higher strength. Interestingly enough, you actually have a full 1 point bonus worth of dex on the regular wolf, standard wolf, over the werewolf, which is interesting. You actually are more dexterous as a wolf than you are as a werewolf. And that includes in wolf form as a werewolf, so keep that in mind. Constitution is a little bit lower for the standard wolf. Intellect is obviously much, much lower. They're not intelligent. They are slightly higher wisdom as a standard wolf over the werewolf, but obviously lower charisma as well, being a pack animal. The standard wolf has its keen hearing and smell. This is obviously where the werewolf gets this ability from. Where standard wolves obviously have pack tactics, you're not going to have that as a werewolf. lycanthropes don't tend to travel in groups the same way as a pack of wolves would. And the standard wolf has a bite attack that does slightly less damage. Same ability to hit, but the damage, potentially their max damage is actually the same, but on average they'll be about 1 point lower per bite than your standard werewolf bite attack. That said, instead of lycanthropy, the wolf is able to actually knock you prone with its bite attack. The idea of it pouncing onto your chest, pinning you down, and biting you. So yeah, you actually have to make a strength check to stay on your feet. So we look at this, and we see the werewolf is actually generally a very powerful creature, but there's some things it actually loses from its wolf ancestry by becoming a werewolf, which is really interesting. I don't know if I would want to maybe use the standard wolf stat block for a werewolf who chooses to take on the wolf form. I'm sure they've balanced it for a reason, but I don't know, I kind of like the idea of taking a standard wolf form. I mean, it is one more stat block to manage, but that being said, I can see it working. So with werewolves being the most common, I don't think I need to really, in our pop culture anyways, I don't see the need to really break it down too far. Werewolves are fascinating creatures. That said, they're kind of plain, especially in a world in D&D where you can pull out so many different varieties of lycanthrope. Pulling on the werewolf feels a little, I don't know, basic. I'd be a little more inclined to pull into other things. But that being said, there's a lot of interesting aspects to play with lycanthropy, right? We have discussed, I'm sure Dan and Adam mentioned the fact that when you're infected with lycanthropy, you can embrace it or you can try and fight it. So there's a lot of roleplay promise in that. To be using them as a DM, definitely lean in on the fact that they can take on this humanoid form and put out little teasers for the party, little signs that might show the party that, hey, there's something a little off here, specifically with the desire to eat red meat. Being a little bit of a short temper, kind of play into those things. It may be nothing, like put it into a couple of NPCs, but maybe only one of them is actually infected with lycanthropy. Maybe you have a whole town infected with lycanthropy, and this whole town kind of lives in this sense of they all know what's going on, but any visitors who come in are potential prey. In that case, I think actually if I was to play with a village full of NPCs infected with lycanthropy, I think I actually would give them pack tactics. I know it could definitely up the CR and the challenge of it, but it seems to flavorfully fit, especially if they are in their hybrid or their wolf form. I like the idea that they're carrying spears. Obviously, if you have a bunch of them, like an infected town, you're going to want to mix it up a bit. Maybe give them a bow, give them a few other options. I think this is a really nice, decent stat block, but beware when you do start to mess with the stat block. You are going to affect the challenge rating, so be careful with that. Anyways, I'm going to get back to work. I still have some bills to pay off here, and I'm going to see if I can find a party that's willing to take me down into the Dungeon of the Mad Mage, try and pay off some of these bills. Anyways, if you want to reach out, you can catch me on Instagram at Clueless Game Master, or reach out on the subreddit. I'd love to hear from you. Well, back to the guild house, Adam and Dan.
All right, so I said before the vampires are CR 13 and werewolves, of course, are CR 3, which is just bullshit.
It's
me.
bullshit. Yeah.
They should be at least CR 8 in my head. Do you bump up their ferocity?
100%.
How do you do that?
I give them more than their max hit points.
Yeah, I increase their freaking AC as well.
They get that 98 plus 18. I would jump that to like 90-12 plus 18, and then I would maximize it.
Yeah, and frankly, I'm giving them 2 claw attacks. Like their multi-attack is getting beefed up with their bite. So 2 claws and a bite. They're going to move at 40 or 50 even feet around. They're going to go fast.
The fact that they only go 40 is weird when they're in wolf form.
And only in wolf form. Their hybrid goes 30, as Brad pointed out, which is shit.
No, man. I'm a massive fan of the Underworld series. Terry and I share that. Because of how they handle lycanthropes in that movie. The name aside, the name's bullshit. Figure it out, writers. But the way they handle them, where even in their humanoid forms, they have a little bit of extra boost, and they are just monstrous in their wolf forms. I would embrace that a little bit more. They also, only being medium doesn't make sense to me. I would love to see a hybrid werewolf be large.
I like that. I like that quite a bit. Frankly, they should be.
Yeah. How else would you add some ferocity to these guys?
Honestly, it's going to be their attacks. I don't need them to do more damage. I just need them to do more attacks. I also want them to run. I want to fly by. I'm going to say that repeatedly in this episode.
Would you give them a disengage as a bonus action?
No, straight up flyby. Like, as a trait, they do not take opportunity attacks.
Okay.
Hard stop. There it is. I'm just going to give it to them because that is how fast they are. I'm going to give them 50 feet of movement.
Yeah.
But
how high would you bump the CR on these guys then?
8.
Make them in a CR8?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And so for those of you that are paying attention, that is going to be the con is +2. So that's going to be +16. And it's going to be...
No, it's going to be 16 plus 3.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, not plus 16. Not plus 16, Adam.
No. So, I'm just going to bust the math out for it. Their AC sucks, but I think they should get hit because it doesn't matter if they do.
I think these guys are just fine at CR3 as the minions of like the Alpha Wolf kind of deal where you bust out the big one if you want to go in that path.
By the time that they get the appropriate weapons, these things are already dead.
Yeah, that's fair
The
enough.
action economy works against them.
Boosting it, would you boost that con save as well? I mean, it's a con 12.
Oh, to turn into a lycanthrope?
To turn into a lycanthrope.
Absolutely. There should be nothing below a 15 for any of this.
I agree. I dislike that it's the one save and done.
No, I'm fine with that. Honestly, I'm fine with that. I also think that they shouldn't have to turn immediately into a werewolf once they get... That con save should happen when they go for a long rest.
Yes, I 100% agree that it should happen when they go for a long rest because it doesn't say you are immune to it after you make a successful save.
Yeah.
So every single time you're hit, you have to make a save. You're gonna get it eventually if it hits you enough.
Yeah, I think that when you go down, or the next time there's a full moon, the DM who has tracked how many times you got bitten says, all right, give me 7 con saves, please.
Yeah, I'm not okay with that. I want just the one because you're not getting super herpes. You're just getting...
No. But you got bit over and over and over and over and over again. You have to...
I would take each time you got bit, maybe make the DC a little harder, but I would only make it 1 roll. Rolling 7 dice. I mean, come on. You don't... That's just...
But that's the way that it is right now.
I know.
When you get bitten, every time you get bitten, you have to make a save. I would just do it later.
I would make it 1 roll for each bite. One roll for all of the bites together. Just the amount of times you got bit. I'd have a little chart next to me as I'm DMing to record. Okay, you got bit 3 times.
Plus 2 every time.
Plus 1 every time, depending on how many times you get bit.
Well, see, I think that you're doing.
But I'm starting that baseline higher. Right? I'm starting that baseline at like a 16.
That doesn't matter, man. You got bit by a werewolf 3 fucking times. They took chunks out of you.
That makes that a DC 19 to hit.
18, but still, no, I don't. That's nothing. You're doing them dirty. Sorry, that's a DC 17 because the first one is 15, then 16, then 17. That's nothing. They're shrugging that off 20% of the time, right? I don't like it. It's not good enough for me. If we're going to have a werewolf campaign, they have to be the center of the campaign. So considering that we're going to have the one werewolf against the party of 5 players, it's going to attack probably 2 of them before they knock it down or it runs away, which means only 2 of them are going to make this save.
Okay.
And if they both pass it because they got a paladin in the group, then who gives a shit, right? Why do I bother? I'm
okay with hitting it a little lower for the reason that it is a save or suck, right?
But it's not save or suck. It's save, and then you can make the choice whether or not to embrace it or not. And if you don't, then you will have a save to do the next time that that it's in 17 days is the next full moon, right? So there's a whole bunch of shit. There's rituals to undo it. This is not suddenly you are banished to the Shadowfell and you can't come back. This is just you put a little asterisk beside your freaking race now and say, okay, I'm also cursed with lycanthropy. There's nothing wrong with me whatsoever. The DM is going to in 8 days say, you get keen senses for smell now, and that's it. What's the harm in getting, there is no downside to getting bitten.
Mechanically, no, but at the same time, role-playing wise, there has to be an effect.
Most players are not going to want to play a negative flaw that they got cursed with because their AC wasn't high enough.
That is why I would make that DC a little bit lower.
No, that's why I'm going to make it a whole lot higher because I want them to get hit with that because I'm giving them mechanical things and not roleplay things.
I think we're coming at this from 2 different directions.
Yeah, we absolutely are. I want there to be worse mechanics. I want you to suffer when you get hit by this.
Yeah. Whereas I don't want to impose this on somebody who doesn't, it will ruin the game for them if they got it. Right.
Frankly, if you are a good DM and you have talked with your players ahead of time and you say, hey, you know what? There's a wolf man walking around here. There were silver weapons in the shop. everyone's going to sit back and go, oh, this is the campaign we're in for? And you'll be able to judge the reactions of the people, so you as a DM are going to know which one to attack.
Do it smartly.
Right? So I have no problem. Dan, I would hit you with this shit 9 times out of 10. Absolutely.
Yes, but not because I want the mechanical, but because I would embrace the role play.
Yeah, but I'd also hit you with the mechanical too, because I like to make you squirm.
Yeah, you do. Anyways, moving on. So we saw that Brad pointed out that the wolves have an AC of 13, but werewolves have an AC of 12 when they're in their wolf form. They are easier to hit in their wolf form than normal wolves are. This is obviously because the wolf stat block has a higher dex. How does this sit with you?
I hate it. I just hate it. Just give them the freaking 13. Just give them... I don't...
It's 1 point, right?
I don't know why they would do this. Why they would make the werewolf wolf lesser, even though it's a bigger creature.
I think they balance it because it's stronger. The werewolf's got a different strength thing, different strength scale than the normal wolf does. So it's a little slower, a little bigger, but it hits harder.
I just think that the natural armor of a werewolf should be higher than of a wolf.
I completely agree with you in that respect, but the fact that the dex drops for a higher...
I don't care about I don't care about the dex. It's the AC.
It's the AC, yeah. Yeah, I don't care. We're in the same boat on that one.
Yeah. Okay, so also the wolf has pack tactics and the ability to knock a creature prone with its bite, but the werewolf doesn't. Do you like that?
Bullshit. It's bullshit, man. Why would a werewolf have different tactics than a wolf?
Well, werewolves tend to be more singular. They can operate in a pack, but that's awfully Twilight or Underworld. The Wolfman was a solo curse. If you're doing it Jekyll and Hyde style, there's no reason it would have pack tactics. But
the ability to knock prone, I would keep in.
I absolutely. The ability to knock prone, yes. The pack tactics, I'm not. Even if it's traveling in a pack, these guys are big brutes that are able to like dish out damage. They don't need to rely on advantage to hit. Also, the moment that you add that with 3 werewolves that need special weapons to hurt them, and they've got these piles of hit points, they go from a CR3 to a CR5 when you start to include pack tactics and whatnot. So, I don't know. But I have a question. Dex and strength and shit aside, AC and whatnot, the wisdom score. This is something that's weird. It is weird. It's a little... Everyone's going to overlook this, but it pissed me off. Wolves have higher wisdom than werewolves. Is this because, in your opinion, that they've got, like, a werewolf has a more chaotic energy than an unaligned wolf, and therefore it has less wisdom? Or is this based on the idea of wolves being more naturally aware of their surroundings? Is its wisdom being the awareness stat kicking in? Why do you think they did this? Or is this just a mistake?
I honestly think it's just a mistake, because you give werewolves keen senses. If you could explain the lower wisdom by saying that a normal wolf is more aware of its surroundings, then why give the werewolf keen senses other than to have that moment where he sniffs your party out? Nah, man, I think it's a mistake.
It doesn't imply every lycanthrope has the keen senses, so it doesn't imply that they are hunters, right? So they all have the keen hearing and smell, right? So I don't know why. Is it because the wolf blood is tainted with human and therefore is lesser?
Yeah, I might go in that direction. Like,
I'm just trying to figure out from a design perspective. Like I say, it's just not going to matter for most people.
I think it's them trying to justify CR3. They don't want to give them too many bonuses to be higher than a CR3.
Fair enough.
Anyways, now when your player becomes a werewolf, it says in the monster manual that a player can bump their strength to 15 if it isn't that high already. They also get a +1 to AC when they're in their wolf or hybrid form, assuming they accept the changes, right? Attack and damage rolls for the natural attacks are strength-based, and notice that the boost to strength doesn't specify which form.
So you just become a buffer half-elf.
Yeah, right? If the character embraces their lycanthropy, hard change, you are chaotic evil.
Yes, by rules as written. I'm going to make that a very general, like, a few days pass and you slip one alignment point over towards chaotic evil.
Yeah.
Unless you embrace it, but...
I don't like the forced alignment change, especially since 5e's kind of really relaxed its grip on alignment. I would like it to be a aspect that the party has to fight over, or has to fight with.
Okay, look, either you embrace it and you become chaotic evil, or you resist it and you got to make the saves, and you are chaotic evil while you are a werewolf.
Yeah.
And you're normal when you're not. if I'm going to do it their way, though, the standard way that it's because it's poorly defined.
Yep.
Then I would do it one step at a time and let the player adjust to it over a handful of sessions and whatnot.
Would you ever let there be a, without saves going forward, good werewolf player?
No.
No?
No. And, I mean, if they're resisting it, sure. Absolutely. And then,
But even in their werewolf form, like in their hybrid form.
well, it's like, okay, here's the thing. If they, and here's the next thing to bring up. If they end up trying to resist it and they fucking fail, do you let them control their character?
No, man. I take their character sheet at that point.
So do I. And I run it as a werewolf until dawn.
Yeah.
At which point the players have to figure out what the fuck to do and everyone else. And that player's just like, please leave the room. Go enjoy the chips and drinks in the other room. We'll let you
Or
know
just
what
sit
happens.
down and be quiet.
No. I want you to come back and say, what happened when you wake up the next day? You wake up in chains. You have to sit out about 10 minutes out of a session, right? Because you got cursed by lycanthropy. And so, no, you wake up and you're good. And part of the problem now is that this is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It's the Bruce Banner versus the Hulk,
Yeah.
right?
I really like that.
God, what did I do?
I would like for them to have or at least this is just coming to my head now as I think about it, the idea of if they do finally accept their fate and gain mastery over the lycanthropy, you start a chaotic evil, but just because you're chaotic evil doesn't mean you don't want to get better, right? And I would have your character at that point try to have a redemption arc of some kind.
That's campaign spanning, though.
That's 100% is campaign spanning, but your character, and this would be with a discussion with the player, of course, right? Because if you go from a lawful good elven paladin to a chaotic evil werewolf,
I don't know, man. That's called drama. I'm like, there it is.
I'm
Yeah.
yes, but I could see a lot of players going, I wanted to play this lawful good paladin. I really want to play this lawful good paladin. I like the story that we've built around this lawful good paladin. How do I reattain lawful goodness? Right?
Deny the lycanthropy.
Yeah.
That's how you do it. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to let you regain your alignment. If you want to maintain that, because this is a life-altering thing, give them the dilemma. You can, once every 8 or 9 sessions, have to sit out a combat round. Or you can maintain control and get all of these really cool things, and the enemies need to have magical shit to hit you and regular swords. And you can get all of that, all those bonuses and boons and everything else. Which, by the way, player characters don't get that immunity to silver rules as written. Mm-hmm. Which, the fuck is that about?
Yeah.
Right? And I just hate the fact...
Well, that's a balance thing that they put in. That's the reason, but it's fucking stupid.
Yeah, and also the fact that I don't like it gets bumped to 15 unless they're already stronger. No, man, just bump it +2.
Yeah.
Or +1. Whatever. Just give them the barbarian...
What happens if you're a barbarian? Like, you already have 20 strength, and now...
Give them 21. Yeah, I'll push you above 20 for this. You got a freaking lycanthropy curse.
Yeah.
Go nuts.
All right, Adam. So, werewolves being so... lycanthropes being so kind of grouped amongst themselves. Let's grab the dice. Let's roll. I want to know how you build a mob of werewolves.
Sure.
Got a 4.
I got a 9. All right, so I'm going to start with social structure for werewolves. They don't mix with others. They just don't. When you go to places like Eberron, or you're going to have these guys as henchmen, they've embraced it and whatnot, and so there's just a bunch of werewolves around. I can see them hanging out with Wereboars. If a hag is just cursing people left, right, and center and making them henchmen, or she says, hey, I want my henchmen to be beefier, I'm going to give them lycanthropy, then I can see them relying on werewolves and wereboars. I can see them mixing and matching a little bit, but that's it. I'm not mixing and matching with anything else. Werewolves are often included in, like, allies for gnolls and shit as well, and I just don't like it. No. Hyenas and wolves are not the same.
That's just hey, let's put our dog-like things together.
Yeah, so
it's like giving lizard folk draconic. Like, fucking why?
Yeah.
Just because it has scales doesn't mean it's the same.
Yeah. So honestly, these guys are going to build a pack. If they embrace it, they'll build a pack.
Yeah.
If they're henchmen, they will stay as henchmen, but brute guards and hunting around the area for intruders and whatnot. They're not going to be your basic foot soldiers. They are going to be unique. Mm-hmm. You're never going to run into an army of werewolves, despite what Curse of Strahd is going to tell you, right? And I don't think a pack is ever going to get above probably a dozen. unless it's wildly out of control and it's been that way for generations. And now it's a good size pack of 25.
Yeah. Okay.
But I would say 40. If you got 4 generations of werewolves that are breeding true, sure, man, give them a pack of 40. But they roam the mountainside, right? Like, this is not they live in a village and they weave baskets and shit. Not if they have embraced it. They are feral creatures. If they've resisted it, that's a different story. Then they're probably not in a community of werewolves.
I don't know. I like the idea of there being a community of werewolves within a town. That I guess they are still resisting it, and
that's it. So they're not going to be infecting other
people.
If
they're embracing it, then you have a singular werewolf who is in a town who has embraced it and is out at night to cause chaos and murder, and then is walking around through the day reveling in the chaos he caused.
Yep. Or you've got the ones that have. They're resisting it, and so they remove themselves. And there's, out in the back 40 out there is a little hut where 4 people live. They're not related to each other. It's our leper colony. It's just lycanthropy.
Yeah.
And we know when the full moon is coming that we go chain them all down, and that is a part of this. But they're not a part of the community.
No.
They're not a mob by any means. If you want a werewolf mob, they've got to be feral. And they've got to be out in the wilderness. And they've got to be decimating the deer population.
The only thing I would give them outside of other werewolves is wolves themselves.
Yeah. I'll give you that.
And that's just, they are the alpha of their pack, right? And that's as far as you need to go into it. As a werewolf in that kind of situation, though, that is someone who's accepted their fate and has embraced the brutality and the savagery of being a werewolf, and they are in their hybrid form primarily.
I would say that occasionally you will have one person from the pack who will turn into their humanoid form and go into town, grab some necessary supplies, make sure that no one is hunting them, and then...
Or even try to, deflect as an NPC to, deflect the party away from the where the werewolves are.
Yeah.
Like, if you have a campaign arc where it is just you're hunting a werewolf pack down, you'll have that one NPC who's super helpful and leads you in another direction for them to ambush you and kill you.
Oh,
and possibly turn some of you.
Remember, they're not dumb.
No,
and they can turn into humans whenever they want.
What about an encounter for these guys?
I don't know, man. It's pretty straightforward. I think we just listed out a whole bunch of them, right? So,
yeah.
And the social encounters are pretty straightforward too. They're either going to plead for help, want to stay away from everybody, or try to deceive you, depending on whether or not they've embraced it.
These guys are going to... This is the realm where you embrace tropes. When you're playing werewolves, embrace the trope and embrace the savagery of them.
I'm going to give you this, though. Here's a fun social encounter. You know how everybody I'm an orphan because I don't want the DM to kill my fucking wife and kids and all that shit? Don't kill them. DMs, make them werewolves.
Oh.
So they're still there, and they're trying to resist it, but then their cousin gives in. And now the family is outcasts from, you got to go cure them. That's a plot hook.
We were having a family reunion out at Waterdeep, and, we all broke bad. Roar.
Yeah, kind of.
All right, so we are going to move on to a commercial break now before we break down the other types of lycanthropes we have in D&D 5e. Hello, lovely listeners.
Or as I like to call you all, my NPCs.
Damn it, we're recording a commercial.
Right.
For those of you who aren't aware, we're currently in the middle of a massive project called The Many Roads to Amelia, where we're continuing our Call of Cthulhu series. Adam has been working tirelessly with a number of people to bring different kind of actual play to you guys.
Or NPCs.
Stop that.
Oh.
As I was saying, from October 2020 to October 2021...
That's 13 months.
On the 13th of each month, we'll be releasing a single episode of our homebrew saga that lays the groundwork for our next miniseries. Adam has taken over as the keeper of arcane secrets, allowing me to join all the other players on this bizarre and horrifying ride that Adam's twisted mind has come up with.
But here's the fun part. Each of these episodes is a one-shot with only a single player. I've massaged the rules to make it a little deadlier and secretly worked with each player to craft each separate story to be radically different in plot, theme, pace, and tone. That means that the players have no idea what the others are up to or what parts of the clues or overarching story the others may know.
We're not even allowed to listen to the episodes as they get released, so we'll be going into the next miniseries completely blind.
This is exciting because it gives us the unique opportunity for attentive listeners like yourselves to actually know more about what's going on than the players do. That means that you can sit by and listen to all the voices from the Deep Dark of Radiance return, mostly with new characters, and you might be able to put the pieces together in ways that the players won't.
Also, there's the threat that if our character dies or goes insane in our one-shot, we won't be invited back for the next series. That's keeping us paranoid, curious,
And sometimes reckless.
and desperate.
So, tune in every month to listen to me and either Dan, Terry, Dave, Megan, or Mieka
Or Brad, or the 5 new voices.
as we whittle down the list of survivors and take a look at what mysteries and horrors are slowly unfolding in Northern Canada, Southern America, and subterranean Egypt. There are many roads to Amelia, and you are invited to walk them all with me over the next year. Just check the It's a Mimic feed on your favorite podcast provider for a new episode on the night of the 13th each month.
Until then, let's jump back into the episode. So, can you give me a hint because I'm recording this commercial with you?
Yes, I could, but I won't.
I hate you.
I know.
Alright, so from big and burly and traditional to the next most common form that we see in D&D 5e, we've got Megan in her little hole in Ravenloft where she's been this entire time, and we figure we got Megan in a little hole in Ravenloft, we'll give her the ones that also cower in little holes. Megan is covering the Wererat.
Hey everyone, Megan here, as you know, here from Castle Ravenloft. So blessed today that we happen to be talking about, were creatures when we've actually just come across a tomb full of rats. And of course our health and safety officer shut down the room in fear that there was a clan of wererats. I didn't really know much about them until today, but kind of very excited to share a couple of my findings, even though I kind of have a fear of becoming a wererat myself. So to start, these folks are more or less like your thieves' guild of the Lycanthropes. And they do tend to kind of build their hideouts within caverns and catacombs and dark and dingy places. So I'm not quite surprised that, Doug, the health and safety guy, was concerned. However, I've been told that they're very selective about who they kind of curse and bring into their clan, so I don't think I would make a very good wererat, so I think that I'm okay, but, I'll get into that, when I get into their stats. So, in fact, let's do that right now. So when they're in their rat form, it's pretty basic. I mean, they do tend to really want to stay in their rat form or pop into their rat form when trying to make a quick escape or just do something really fast and really quick. So that's the one that they kind of favor for those kinds of actions. So being a tiny beast that is technically unaligned, they do only have an armor class of 10. It's a small creature. If you poke it, you're going to stab it. That's just kind of how it goes. Very, very small amount of hit points. Again, it's a rat. You don't want to get too overzealous and crazy with this. With a speed of only 20, technically, and in my mind I was trying to think of why, if as a rat they're going to make a quick escape, would they not have a faster speed? Well, I mean, they're small, so they have small legs, so they're not going to go as far. So, yeah, that was kind of how I justified that, but you guys can talk about that if you feel like it. So for stats, they have a strength of -4, a dex of 0, a con of -1, intelligence is -4, wisdom 0, and charisma -3. So I'll get into a little bit as to why their wisdom is a little bit higher, because that kind of comes into play with a couple of their abilities. But of course, in my mind, their dex would be one of their higher stats because they move around, dodging shit, probably, ducking and diving through holes in walls, etc., that kind of thing, right? So for senses, they do have dark vision of 30 feet. Passive perception is a 10. They don't have any languages. Challenge rating, obviously, of 0. It's a rat. It's not that scary. So again, why they would have perception or wisdom, shall we say, at a 0 as well, is basically for perception purposes. So they do have keen smell. So they do have advantage on a wisdom check or a perception check on things that they can smell. And then, of course, just being a rat, it has an action of a bite. When it comes to being in their human form, of course, the visual you get is a, scrawny, twitchy, wiry kind of human. They do actually prefer using light weapons over heavy weapons. I feel like that checks out in the sense where, even if they are in their human form, they still want to be very lightweight. They still want to move around. They still want to be able to escape should they not randomly be able to shapeshift or move into their rat form to be able to escape. So they don't like carrying a whole lot on them. Also, just imagine the fact that if they live within catacombs or small spaces, if you're trying to escape and you're trying to run, you don't want things that are going to get like hooked or attached onto things. You want to be able to fit in small spaces still, even if you are in your humanoid form. That's just how I picture it in my head anyways. All right, but to get into kind of like your stats in your humanoid form, if you were to be a Wererat, we're looking at an armor class of 12. It's kind of humanoidish. That seems pretty average for me. They do have a bigger hit point pool and a speed of 30. Obviously, in my mind, longer legs, a little bit more speed. So yeah, these guys are technically a medium humanoid, so they are just the size of your regular human and can be lawful evil. In my mind, if you are in a thieves guild, it's hard not to be on the more of the evil side, but I'd be interested to hear you guys' thoughts on how to be a good were creature. I think that would be an interesting conversation to hear. But let's jump into some of its basic stats. So its strength is 0, its dex is +2, a con of +1, intelligence 0, wisdom 0, and charisma -1. So of course its stat block is very focused in on dex and constitution. So in my mind that definitely checks out and tracks for the fact that they can move very quickly. I'm just imagining like gymnastic style movements of their little bodies. And then of course constitution, just being able to live and survive in weird conditions, right? Skills, of course, their perception is still +2 with a stealth of +4. Again, checks out if you're thinking like rogue style, thieves guild kind of creature. Damage immunities, though, they have a ton, which I think is awesome. I think this checks out for a couple of the were creatures. That, of course, they are immune to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage from non-magical weapons that aren't silvered. So again, that's similar to any other of the were creatures I'm sure that you guys are covering. But I love and hate this because, like, I don't know, I've played in a lot of campaigns where there's were creatures, and if you, as a non-D&D or fantasy player of games, would not understand that you require light or silver to destroy these kinds of creatures. And I do believe it would be very frustrating to try and figure that out with a DM that was not interested in helping you figure that out or think that you should know those things. It's just weird to me. Anyways, bad experience in my mind from that kind of behavior from DMs and players. So, again, interested to hear what your guys' thoughts are on that. So they do have dark vision of 60 feet in rat form only, and passive perception of 12. They do have common, and they can't speak in rat form. Not that they can't speak rat in human form, but they just can't speak in rat form. Do rats not have a language? Interesting. Okay, cool. Challenge rating of 2. So very basic, very simple kind of character. They have the shape changer capabilities, of course, because they are a were creature. So it can basically use its action to polymorph into a rat-humanoid hybrid or into a giant rat, and then back into its true form, which is a humanoid. Its statistics, other than its size, are pretty much the same in each form. Any equipment it is wearing or carrying isn't transformed. It's reverted into its true form if it dies. So I'm sure you guys are covering shape shifter, shape changer in pretty much every single one, but yeah. And then, of course, they do still maintain their keen smell, so the Wererat has advantage on wisdom perception checks, and it just relies on its smell. For actions, they do have a multi-attack in humanoid or hybrid form only. The Wererat makes 2 attacks, only one of which can be a bite. So it's not like you can try and bite and curse someone multiple times in attack, which I think is a good balance. Otherwise, you're just going to turn everyone into a Wererat right away, and that's just annoying as hell. So, of course, for their attacks, they have their bite. So rat or humanoid form only. They have a melee attack, which is a +4 to hit, a reach of 5 feet. Of course, it's a single target, but in some forms it's a 4 or a 1d4 +2 piercing damage. If the target is a humanoid, it must succeed on a d11 Constitution saving throw, and otherwise they will be cursed. So, curse away, my friends. They, as I said, that they do tend to like to carry lighter weapons. So in the readings, they would definitely mention that it would be like a short sword or a hand crossbow that they would carry. Nothing too large like a mace or like an axe or anything like that. So that would just be, of course, a melee attack. That's a +4 to hit with 5 reach, with either 5 or 1d6 +2 piercing damage. Or, of course, your basic hand crossbow, which is a ranged attack. Of a range of 30 to 120 feet, with pretty much the same kind of damage, except it's a 1d6 +2 piercing damage. So as a whole, very interesting kind of grouping of rat folk. I do find them interesting in the sense that they do like to fight a little bit more in pack tactics and horde tactics than they would fighting on their own. I feel like it would be very rare that you would find one of these by themselves. Not to mention also, like, a piece of their culture is that they don't accept it if you leave the clan as well. So I feel like it would be very, very rare in a campaign that you would find one of these just wandering around about by itself without a purpose or without being hunted by its old clan. So I think in like a D&D setting, I think the most obvious use of these things would be you go into a catacomb or you're searching through any kind of dungeon, you would come across like a whole horde of these or a clan or a couple of them sprinkled here and there, and you find out that there's a clan within your area. Or you can kind of have like the fun backstory where if you decide to build like a were character as an NPC, be more of like a, I escaped my clan, can you help me and keep me hidden so that I can continue to escape from my clan? And you have this NPC that's constantly hiding, that kind of aspect to it. I like Wererats. I'm interested to kind of hear what you guys think about a couple of those pieces that I spoke to. One, again, do rats have a language? If so, why not? And would you guys probably maybe put one in as a DM, like to be able to communicate in rat form? Or do you think that they're not smart enough to have a language in rat form? I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts on that. As well as, of course, would you use these as, or allow your players to play as were, or have you allowed your players to play as were characters? And was it successful? I personally have played it a few campaigns with characters that have played as were animals and were creatures, and it just did not work out the way that they wanted it to, just because of the way the stat blocks are built. So, interested to hear your thoughts. For the audience, obviously, feel free to follow me on Instagram at 0mega0. Basically, just a lot of weird, nerdy art stuff, so feel free to do so. Otherwise, you guys have yourselves a great week. Bye!
I love the fact that Megan's grave robbing team in the catacombs of Castle Ravenloft has a health and safety officer named Doug.
I legit know a CSO whose name is Doug, and that's the funniest shit I have heard all week. And I had, immediately derailed, but I had, when I got home today, the day we're recording this is April Fool's. We are recording this on April 1st, just shattering that window. I got home and my daughter walks up to me and she broke her arm recently. She's going to go get the cast removed. And she goes, "Daddy, I made you brownies." I'm like, "Oh, fantastic. Okay." And she's like, "Go look at them up. Like they're up on the stove waiting for you." I'm like, "Okay." So I go upstairs home from work, exhausted, really looking forward to brownies. Open up the tinfoil wrapped baking tray. And it is a bunch of brown paper letter E's cut out in the pan. And I've never been more proud as a father.
Brown E's.
Brown E's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boo.
Yeah, I was so proud of her.
Okay, so back to the.
Oh, hey, yeah, we're doing a podcast.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah. Have you ever had a player succumb to Lycanthropy in a campaign?
I have been one, and I have DM'd one.
How'd it go?
When I became one.
In 30 words or less.
Oh, that's hard to do, and I've already just lost 12. It went well with me. We went Wereboar, I believe it was. Oh, sorry, Werebear with it, and I went good, and it was part of being a half-orc barbarian who could shift into this bear form. It worked well for me. When I DM'd it, it did not go well because of the situation I mentioned earlier where the Lawful Good Paladin really wanted to play the Lawful Good Paladin. I gave him the curse, and he's all like, "No, I'm immune to curses." I'm like, "You're not immune to this one." It went poorly. So, learn from my mistakes. Target a different player. Don't go after the Lawful Good Paladin if they're immune to curse. Don't go after the guy who's immune to curse and force them to change. Go after...
Well, no, you know what? I'm going to. But I'm also going to say ahead of time that, did you know Lycanthropy is a different kind?
It is above and beyond what you are immune to as a paladin.
I'm going to drop that hint from the local priest or whatever, right? So
yeah. What about you?
No, I've seen it in campaigns. I've had other players get hit by it, and it never lasts longer than a session because remove curse hits.
Yeah, that's fair.
And then we're done. Like it's over.
Yeah, the fact that it's removable by remove curse it removes all the drama from this.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't like it.
Do you think the rats should have a language?
No, rats don't get a fucking language, Megan. Jesus Christ. I'm not even going to fucking acknowledge that. Next.
Well, if you're not going to acknowledge that, how do you feel about the fact that the werewolf gets an increase to its speed in wolf form, but the wererat doesn't have any sort of change to its speed. Doesn't even get a downgrade to 20 feet because it's smaller.
Yeah, I hate that. I don't understand why. This is again 5th edition design not being consistent. I'm going to straight up say, no, you move 20 feet. I'm sorry, the end. When my NPCs, when my monsters turn into rats, remember, they drop everything. So all of a sudden, poof, there's empty clothes.
Yeah.
And a rat comes scurrying out towards the nearest hole. It's a last-ditch effort to get the fuck away. So, yeah, they're going to be dashing. They'll be moving 40 feet and around because they're not attacking. Let them get away.
Yeah.
Right? That's enough. I'm not going to give them 60 feet of movement to get out of their clothes and run away. It's stupid and ridiculous. And if a player gets cursed with the Wererat thing, they're not going to be super rat. Do you agree?
I do. Honestly, I do. If you are going to change the speed of a werewolf, you should be able to change the speed of a wererat.
Yeah.
Just logically, those two should match.
Yep. Absolutely. And we're going to see when we get to Werebear, their speeds change as well. I hate that the Wererat doesn't.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've harped on alignment a couple of times, and alignment doesn't fucking matter in 5th edition. We've said it over and over and over again. And Megan was wondering what a good aligned Wererat would look like. But, I mean, first of all, do you like the fact that these guys are lawful evil, even though they're associated with thieves guilds?
Yeah.
Which tend to be chaotic and neutral?
I really do like the fact that they're lawful evil, mostly because I view them as, they're kind of the guys that will do anything but they will fall to that sniveling pecking order, right? So if someone above them tells them to do it, they're going to do it because they're afraid of that person. That's that lawful.
Yeah.
And they're evil. They will do anything.
Yeah, and I also think that your characters can bribe them.
Yep.
So I'm actually fine with this, strangely. Like, Thieves Guilds, this is not a standard Thieves Guild. If you've got a little warren of wererats, they're their own unique kind of urchin, as opposed to Thieve Guild to me. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. What do you feel about the fact that the wererats get dark vision in the rat form, and only in the rat form? Like, we look at the other ones we see today, and none of the other lycanthropes in today's episode gets dark vision. Only wererats get it in their rat form. Do you like that? Do you hate that? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I don't know. They should have it in the hybrid form.
I honestly, I think rat vision, wererats should
rat
have it.
vision, that's what I'm calling it now.
I think they should have it in their hybrid form as well, but why the fuck do werewolves not get dark vision?
Because wolves don't get it, but rats do have dark vision.
Yeah, I get it, but I still, like, the idea of a wolf's eye shining in the dark is such an iconic trope. Why don't wolves get dark vision?
Well, because their eyes shining in the dark is not them getting dark vision. It's just reflecting the fire or the light that they got close to so they can see their prey, right? Like, that's what it is. I don't know, man. Dark vision is so overused, and it's weird that I'm saying for the first time I think it's underutilized on a monster. This is the one monster that should have it.
Combo breaker.
Okay, did you notice that the DC for the con save to hold back the curse is lower for these guys? It was DC 12 for the werewolf, DC 11 for the wererat. It's different for all of them. Do you like that? It makes me wonder. I'm looking at lycanthropy. Lycanthropy, the curse, seems to be dependent upon the animal. And so do we have different lycanthropy curses? Or is it a biological aspect of the lycanthropy? Or, like, why is it different strengths?
This is just occurring to me now, but to curse someone with lycanthropy, what is the process?
You mean like when the hag does it?
Yeah.
Not the bite?
Yeah.
I'm going to sacrifice the animal.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
It is so much easier to get a hold of a rat, and it is such a smaller and more sniveling little creature that to break the curse, to resist the curse, is going to be that much easier. Wolves, a little bit more so. Then
boars,
a little bit more so. And then bears, a lot more so. Right? Like, tigers, even more so.
Well, tigers and bears, I think, are the same.
Yeah, I think they're the same. It's 15 for both, or 14 for both, I think. No, tigers are a little bit easier. Bears are the hardest. But, like, I like this idea. This informs how the curse is made to me.
Sure. Okay. I still think that that the magic itself is the same. So it should be the same con, like the same save. Because it's a lesser life.
I think it's because it's a lesser life form.
It's interesting to me, Dan, that you think that they're greater and lesser life forms. Let's move on.
Between animals, yes.
All life is sacred, Dan.
I'll kill the fuck out of a cow for a steak. I don't give a shit.
Oh, Dan.
Come at me, vegans.
Thanks, Terry. Jesus, calm down. All right, so when a player... We talked about the werewolf player for a second. When a player becomes a wererat, here are the things that change. Their dex bumps to 15 if it isn't that high already, which is the same thing. I still want that to be a numerical bonus.
It should be a +2.
Yeah. Attack and damage rolls for their natural attacks are strength or dex based, whichever is higher.
Sure.
Yeah, that tracks for me.
I just want to see like the gigantic Austrian wererat that's just massive, but he's still a wererat. Just like Arnold Schwarzenegger level muscles, but he's still just a wererat.
I think you'd look more like Stallone.
No, Dolph Lundgren.
Anyway, again, this is another thing where the human form, the humanoid form, still gets that bonus to the stat, even when they're in their humanoid form, right? Like it's a little odd that they're still doing that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like it. I think that you should not be able to tell by looking at them. That's one of my favorite things about lycanthropy lore is that you don't know who the werewolf is. In D&D, you can tell.
Yeah, they start picking up the traits.
I'm not sure I like that. We have shifters. Just fucking do that.
I like it because it's subtle, but I would definitely, if it is a, you're trying to find the Wererat and there's that one dude whose nose twitches all the time, that's too easy of a giveaway.
Yeah.
Right? I would have it be far more subtle than that.
So I got a question for Wererats as well. They're really the one, were-tigers as well, but we're not talking about those this week. With Wererats, when they turn into hybrids, should they have tails?
Yes.
Cool. I agree 100%. I also feel like that would be absolutely horrible and painful.
I think the whole process of changing forms is horrible and painful.
Yeah, but I really think that their tailbone should fucking ache. I don't know why I'm focused on that, but like, I feel like when you suddenly grow an entire appendage, that should be fucking traumatizing.
Now, if you're in a commune of wererats and you all change into your hybrid form at the same time and you grow that tail, do they get all tied together and can you have a wererat king?
No. Stop that. Moving on. Before we move on to the next one, I want to finally get into this immune to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage from non-magical weapons that aren't silvered. We talked about it briefly before, but I want to point out how fucking powerful this is. And you have to say no at some point and use common sense.
Yeah.
Because, first of all, a fireball will still work on them.
Yep.
So it is those specific kinds of damage. But a Tarrasque who steps on a wererat will not kill the wererat. That seems fucking broken to me. A kraken should wrap it in a tentacle and pop it like a fucking balloon. And technically, that's bludgeoning damage from a non-magical weapon.
I see what you're saying.
At some point, you have to...
If you go to the far end of it, sure.
I'm just going to pull the death by massive damage ruling.
Yeah.
Will override this immunity. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one.
So you can toss this guy off an airship.
Yeah.
Even though that's just bludgeoning damage, they're not going to get up flat style like fucking Judge Doom from Who Framed Roger Rabbit, right?
No,
Let me be clear. You would have to do 66 points of damage on average.
In a single hit.
In order to trigger this. So, frankly, your likelihood of doing this is not going to come up very often. But when the
Even dropping them off a thing, right? Like,
yeah, that's just 10d6. You're not going to get there.
No.
Right? They'll go down. I might even knock them unconscious, but they'll get back up.
It's very situational, and I would have use common sense with it, like you were saying.
That's what I'm saying.
But at the same time, the idea of like the Tarrasque or Godzilla level like kaiju monster squishing the wererat, moving its foot, and the wererat gets back up and like scrambles away. The big threat of these things is how resilient they are. And
yeah, but I don't play fucking Looney Tunes, Dan. That's Looney Tunes to me. If you're playing a comedy campaign, man, you do you, that's absolutely fine. But in a realistic Lycanthrope campaign and whatnot that I'm talking about here, it's
only comedic because that's the way I put it. having these things just be that resilient, that resistant to damage. It is a curse. It is magic that is protecting them. I am willing to make more concessions in favor of the were beast than I am towards logic in this sense.
Okay, that's you. I would play it differently. I'm not going to mess with that.
Let's roll on mob structures socially and encounters for these guys. I got a 6.
I got a 17.
I don't get to go first.
This is the mob. Of all of them, this is the one that's a mob. You're going to run into lots of them, and they are going to want to infect others with the lycanthropy, and they are going to sit there and say, hey, just give in. It's fine. Hey, it's okay. Right? And they're going to want more true wererats.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to want to breed like rats, too.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to have giant colonies. Your sewers should always have wererats in them.
This is one of those, I 100% agree with you. This is one of those mobs that can really get away. Like, this is the
kobolds as well. Like you're gonna get a lot of them.
Yeah, right. And for a level 20 campaign dealing with the wererat plague, and the wererats are just moving from spot to spot to spot, infecting everybody in their path.
Yeah,
right. I'm
on board with that. That's a fun campaign to me.
Yeah. What about socially? Let's talk about that. We just talked about the encounter side. What about socially?
All right. So from a social standpoint, they're going to be sniveling. They're going to be like the stool pigeon, the traditional kind of the fence for the illegal weapons or drugs or whatever.
Yeah.
They're always dealing in a back alley with a trench coat, and if you just point a crossbow at them, even if it's not silvered, they're going to go, hey, no, it's okay. It's all right. They know they're going to live, but they just don't want to get hurt.
Yeah.
Right? And I mean, it's going to be, hey, you know who's a wererat? Remember Men in Black? Do you have any idea how much that stings? He's a wererat. Tony Shalhoub is a wererat in that movie. And that's what wererats are to me. Cool. You know who else is? Benny from The Mummy.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, O'Connell, looks like we got all the horses. Yeah, he's a fucking wererat. Those are wererats to me.
Yeah, there's one other aspect of wererat, and it comes in purely in the urban frame of mind. When I think of wererats, I don't know why I think Victorian. And I think that darkened, shadowy figure in the alleys.
They're always standing on cobblestone, aren't they?
Yeah, right?
Yeah, I don't know why I have that too.
And I don't know why that is, but like they're going to be that ominous threat in the shadows that really draws your players into the grime of an urban setting.
You'll notice they're also the only evil one that has a ranged attack. They have the hand crossbow to shoot from the shadows.
Yeah. I mean, they're going to use that. And you said like they're going to breed like rats will. Yes. These guys never come alone.
I get it. It's gross, but I get it.
Gross. Anyway, speaking of gross, Dave has gone to Drome in Eberron, where the genocidal attitudes of that campaign setting have forced them to seek asylum. Do you think that there might not be a cure in Eberron?
Lycanthropy is so easy to fix in D&D that it's weird that they just went freaking crusade on the Lycanthropes in Eberron and forced all of them off into this corner of the world.
Yeah.
You know, under the protection of hags and trolls and shit in order to live. And remember, monsters there do run, like, that is the monster nation.
Yeah.
Right? So they're just a part of everyday life, wandering around in the streets and whatnot. So I assume that they've all given in to their evil side. I guess there's no cure in Eberron.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm all right with it too. It's unique.
Other than a big ritual or something like pulling on the dragon's shards of some sort fucking thing. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to say that it's probably tied to the Dalkir because fuck everything else is. So
sure.
Just, I mean, go nuts with it. Go to town. I think it's a lot of fun. And yeah, I really do like that there's not, I'd still use a wish. Let them use a wish.
Hey guys, Dave here. I'm still hanging out in Corvair, and more specifically in Drome. We've managed to find our way into a forest here, and it's led me to have some interesting conversations with some people and locals. As you know, there was a big push to get rid of all of the Lycanthropes in Corvair, and a lot of them ended up down here. Now, specifically, the ones that were really interesting to me were the Wereboars. Now, Wereboars are ill-tempered and vulgar brutes. When they're in their humanoid shape, they're big and muscular and, kind of, beefy and whatnot. But they do tend to keep, like, short, stiff hair as well. I mean, honestly, I think Terry might be one of these. Like, he's kind of stocky and muscular. He's got short, stiff hair. Like, he is Terry. Now, when these guys are in their humanoid and hybrid forms, they use heavy weapons. Well, in hybrid or animal form, they get goring attacks that they use to spread the lycanthropy, the curse of lycanthropes, right? A wereboar infects other creatures indiscriminately. It's going to try to hit anybody, and it can. And it relishes the fact that the more that the victims resist the curse, the more savage they become, the more bestial they become. Now, wereboars do live in small family groups in remote forest areas, and they do build like small little huts or dwellings in caves and stuff like that. They are very, very suspicious of strangers, but they do sometimes find themselves allying and joining up with orcs, maybe to raid something here or there. Maybe they think that, oh yeah, you got tusks, I got tusks, we should be friends, right? Their stat block is actually kind of neat. They are medium humanoids that are neutral evil. When they're in their humanoid form, their AC is 10. When they're in their boar or hybrid form, their AC is 11, okay, because they get some natural armor. Their hit points are 12d8 plus 24. Their speed is 30 feet, but if they're in boar form, their speed is 40 feet. Their strength is a 17, con is a 15, and everything else is entirely average except for charisma, which is a little below. Their skills, they get perception of a +2, and they are immune to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage from non-magical weapons that aren't silvered, okay? So that's where it becomes difficult for your guys. They do get a passive perception of 12, and they speak common, although they cannot speak it when they are in boar form. These guys are a CR4, and the stats represent that quite well. Now, they do get the shape changer ability. The Wereboar can use its action to polymorph into a kind of boar/humanoid hybrid, or just straight up into a boar. They can also use their action to turn back into their true humanoid form. Its statistics, other than its AC, are the same in every form, and the equipment that it's wearing or carrying is not transformed. But if the Wereboar dies, it does transform back into its true form. It does get a charge attack when it is in the boar or hybrid form only. If the Wereboar moves at least 15 feet straight toward a target and then hits it with its tusks on the same turn, the target takes an extra 2d6 slashing damage. If the target is a creature, it must succeed on a DC 13 strength save, or it'll be knocked prone. It also gets a relentless ability. Now this recharges after a short or long rest. If the Wereboar takes 14 damage or less, that would reduce it to 0 hit points. It is reduced to 1 hit point instead. Okay, so if your sorcerer is sitting in the back and he throws a fireball at this thing, and it does 40 damage or whatever, the Werebear is going to die. But if it's getting low and you do less than 14 to it, 14 or less to it, that would reduce it to 0 hit points, then it's still up, it's still moving, it still is relentless, if that makes sense. For its actions, it does get a multi-attack in the humanoid or hybrid form only. The Wereboar will make 2 attacks, only one of which can be with its tusks. They do have a maul, which they use in the humanoid or hybrid form only, and that is a melee weapon, which is a +5 to hit, reach of 5 feet, and it does 2d6 plus 3 bludgeoning damage. However, its Tusk Attack, which is also a melee weapon attack, is a +5 to hit. It does 2d6 plus 3 slashing damage, and it must succeed on a DC 12 con save or be cursed with Wereboar Lycanthropy. Lycanthropy? Yeah, I'm going to go with Lycanthropy. Now, it would be doing a disservice if you guys didn't also learn about what a boar is, okay? Boars are medium beasts. They've got, an AC of 11 and, 2d8 plus 2 hit points. Their speed is 40 feet. Their strength and con are a little bit above average, and everything else is a little bit below. Their passive perception is 19. They have no language, and they're a CR 1/4. They also get the charge and relentless action. and they get a Tusk Attack, which is a +3 to hit, and a 1d6 +1 slashing damage. Now, you got to keep in mind that boars tend to not be solitary, okay? As you guys know, I do hunt. I know a little bit about boars, or wild pigs, I guess. And not that I've specifically hunted them, but in my experience, I've come across a little bit about these guys. Now, everything from the boar to a wild pig to even a javelina, which is sometimes known as a stink pig. That's javelina with a J, okay? These things tend to travel around with others of their kind. Now, they don't have to, but they tend to, okay? Especially with the young. I mean, you're going to find that with most creatures. They're going to travel around and so on in packs. And what these guys will do is when they come across a threat, they make a lot of noise, which intimidates, and then they charge. Sometimes they'll follow through with that charge, but they don't always, okay? It'll be a false charge to kind of show superiority, and again, to intimidate. But these things are going to be running scared most of the time. All right, if they do hit, they're going to hit and run. And I feel like that would probably be something that you're going to get with the Wereboars as well. Now, it doesn't say anything like that specifically in anything I've come across in the 5th edition manual, but I mean, this is how that creature would respond to a threat. They're not going to run up and hit you and then stand there and hit you again and then stand there and hit you again with their tusks. Like, that's not the kind of creature that these are. These guys don't want to have to resort to combat. They want to scare you to leave them alone, and then they're going to fuck off, okay? And I really feel like that's how you should probably play a Wereboar if you were going to put your party up against one. Anyways, I'm going to send it back now to Adam and Dan. If you guys want to get a hold of me, you can reach me always at the subreddit r/it'samimic. Thanks a lot, guys. I'll catch you later.
So, thank the D&D gods that we have Dave. Because how else would we know how big a boar is, Adam?
Fuck. What an idiot. Anyway, I was surprised to discover that they were medium creatures. I legitimately was.
Oh, really? I wasn't at all. I've seen boar. They're fucking huge, man.
I've seen razorback boar, yeah, but like wild piglets and shit are like toe puntable, right?
Well,
but,
yeah, the piglets,
yeah.
Sure. But like children are toe puntable too.
Look, yeah, but okay. Okay. Pigs.
You haven't lived until you kicked a baby, Adam.
Oh, then I have lived, Dan.
Concern.
There is when I look at pigs, I see them as no bigger than a mastiff, and a mastiff is a small-sized creature.
A mastiff pushes that boundary to me.
So does a pig. I'm just surprised that that boars are medium. I'm fine with it because it does push that boundary. That's where it blurs the line. I'm cool with it. But you're telling me that a boar is bigger than a wolf? You know how big fucking wolves are? Good God.
I mean, it's bigger than some wolves? Yeah, I can see it. Anyways, what about the low ACs? This is getting to be a fucking problem. Like, this thing is a CR4 and it has an AC of 10 or 11. The hell does this tell you about lycanthropes in D&D?
That they are an afterthought.
Right?
Yeah. Look, it tells me that they are relying on you not being able to hit them. There's one silvered weapon that one character has that is going to be the target of the attack. Right? That's what it tells me with this. Because if all of your martial characters have it, if your monk has silver brass knuckles, these creatures don't stand a chance. No. The action economy is already against them, and all you need is a single spellcaster in the mix to fuck them up. Remember, they are not immune to fire,
spells,
cold, and force damage. Like the fighter doesn't need a +1 silver sword. He just needs a wand of magic missile with 4 charges.
Yeah. Right?
And if everybody has one, we'll do it. Like, that fucker's going down. So it's not impossible to get by here, but they're designed as if that's the only way to do it. I really don't like that.
No.
There just needs to be a higher AC.
I would almost give them resistance to spells.
Spell resistance for lycanthropes? Yeah, if I'm going to make it a CR 8, 9, 10 when I'm getting up that level, absolutely spell resistance.
Yeah, like that.
The alpha wolf or the original one that got cursed?
We see that vampires and werewolves are always going to be closely associated. We see that vampires, they really embrace this conniving mastermind narrative with them, with their mechanics. They need to really embrace, when it comes to Wereboar, Werebears, Werewolves, even Wererats, this savage tenacity that they have. These things need to endure. And how else better to do that than to give them a bunch of defensive boons? And then, I mean, unfortunately, as rules is written, they've stripped that away from them by giving them these really low ACs. Now, that's not to say you can't give them armor for their hybrid forms.
Mm-hmm.
But, and I 100% would, if they're a bad guy, they would understand that, hey.
Of course, yeah.
Right? And I mean, we've said that from day one. A Wereboar with a shield and scale mail armor wielding a longsword is still a possible thing to encounter.
Yep.
Right? It just, it bugs me that they don't have a little bit more boost of that curse for their survivability.
Yeah, the other thing that's freaking weird here is the relentless ability that they have. Because if it takes less than 15, so 14 or less damage that would reduce it to 0 hit points, they pop back up with 1. Why? Like, fine, we were just talking about this defensive boon that they should have, but why? And why only Wereboars?
And why only once per rest?
I just don't understand this relentless. I'm back at what we do in the shadows with relentless.
I think relentless. Fucking Nandor.
Yeah.
Because I was so relentless.
Creepy paper.
I mean, we see the relentless is it's going to match what half orcs get in that respect, right?
Honestly, this is one of those things that I'm writing down on a little sticky note and I'm putting inside my DM screen to add to my homebrew monsters and stuff to give them like rampage, like reckless, like all of these other
hack tactics, stuff like that. Yeah,
these are the things that you're going to give to make your unique creatures even more unique and memorable and whatnot. Is the fact that it shrugged this off and then ran away. I'm assuming that it is because you hit a boar hard enough and the boar is just going to run the fuck away if it can. It's got thick enough skin, it's going to try to shrug it off and disappear into the long grass.
Sure.
Is that the mentality on this?
I think so.
The fact that they have the ability to charge in, so then they would have the ability to shape change and run away with their 40 feet of movement in boar form.
Sure.
Like, is that because?
I mean, I don't see a Wereboar running away from a fight.
Boars very much will run though. Like when you are hunting boar,
they will run to turn around and get you again when you're not expecting.
No, they're super territorial. Like if you're in their territory, yeah, they'll come back around to get you.
Yeah,
but all creatures will live tomorrow or will live today to fight tomorrow. No creature, unless they're a zealot, is going to fight to the death.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
So this is what it comes. I like Dave's insight about the hit and run tactic.
Okay.
Right? That boars do, because they charge out of nowhere, they sideswipe you, and then they disappear again, right? This is my whole idea of them running away, because they want to turn around and charge you again. At some point, they're going to be too wounded to do that, and they would know to fuck off. Even a regular boar would, so a Wereboar definitely.
It is a trait that we see a lot when we see lycanthropes in pop culture, where like that first attack, you never really see them. They run by and someone's dead or gone.
Oh yeah, or they're on the ground bleeding from a huge gash on their leg.
Right? Or something like that. Speaking of bleeding from a huge gash in their leg, does it annoy you as much as it annoys me that Wereboar don't have a bite attack?
Yeah.
Like, they are known for their tusks. They are known for their weird-shaped mouths. And boars are known for eating fucking everything. Why do Wereboars...
They're the only ones that don't get like a...
It makes no sense.
So I got a question. And if this is how they pass lycanthropy on, are their tusks covered in saliva, and is it saliva that does it then? Or is this still just a magical thing that's happening?
No, it's like Wereboar dust. It's boogers.
Like,
it's boogers right next, because it's right next to the mouth and nose and snout.
I just don't understand why this is the thing that passes on lycanthropy. Everything else is bite.
Yeah. Give them a bite attack, not just the tusks.
I guess what they want is for them to charge in and hit with that gore, that tusk goring attack, and then hit with that lycanthropy, right? That's what they're going for here. So fine, I get it, because by the time they stop to eat you, you're probably dead.
Yeah, I guess that's fair.
So I understand it, but it thematically is fucking weird.
Now, For players with these guys, we see that, as we saw with Wererats and Werewolves, they get that boost to strength. These guys go up to 17.
Yeah.
That's beefy, but again, it should just be a numerical bonus. And they get that bonus to AC, which has been the same
the
with
plus
the other
one.
so far, the
Yeah.
+1. Now, their attacks and everything is going to be strength-based and strictly strength-based.
Well, yeah, for their natural attack.
It makes sense. They're
Yeah.
boars. And that boost to strength, like with the others, doesn't matter what form you're in. You just get that boost.
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, and these guys are the neutral evil, right? Which
Now-
is, I mean, sure. We see this with fiends. We've seen this with others as well. Oh, you get the lawful evil, the chaotic evil, and the neutral evil. Sure, this is the neutral evil one. I guess these guys are just more all about damage. I feel like these guys should have been chaotic, where wolves should have been neutral evil.
I see Wereboars being very selfish, so neutral evil makes sense to me. It tracks for sure.
Yeah, I just see werewolves as being more evil.
Yeah,
Capital E. So honestly, it doesn't matter. You know how to play a Wereboar at this point.
Yeah.
Right?
They also get that charge when you are a player.
Yeah,
You
what's
get
the
charge as
math
well.
on that?
It's strength plus 8 plus proficiency plus strength modifier.
8 plus proficiency plus strength. I mean, sure, that's fine. You know what? That should be a fucking combat maneuver that anyone can do is with the charge.
It fucking pisses me off that it's a feat. You get the charger feat, and that's the closest you get to the ability to do a full.
We'll rant about this in our feats episode
Sure.
way down the line when we finally cover those.
Let's
Yeah.
grab the dice. Let's talk about social structure and combat structure for these guys.
Nat 20.
I got a
you
12.
cannot win. You finally hit
Lord.
double digits. And
Yeah.
All right, so look, Dave hit the nail on the head. These guys are small families.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to hit groups of them in groups of 4 to 8. You're not going to get big mobs.
No.
These guys, if a hag has cursed them, I can see these guys being minions. I can. They make good just like sidekicks to following orcs around as well. Like they could be almost mercenaries sometimes, depending on how intelligent, if they've embraced it. But if they're resisting it, they're going to have their own little Wereboar family or Wereboar family out in the middle of nowhere. And they're going to be super territorial about shit.
And tribal. Yeah.
And this, more than the others, you should be able to see evidence of as they gore up at the trees and shit as well, right?
Yeah.
How do you track a werewolf? The tufts of hair, the blood, the footprints, and all of that's going to be the same for a wereboar.
The cracked twigs in the foliage.
Yeah. How do you track wererats? I mean, are you looking for rat poop? Wererat poop in the corners of the room?
I think Wererats specifically are going to be the ones that are hard to track.
I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah. But Wereboars, you're going to find the scraping on the trees. You're going to, like, a Wereboars, I need to go there, right? And goes in a straight line and fuck anything in its way.
Yeah, I agree with you. And we get that with the charge and the relentless flavor.
Yeah, yeah.
As a fact, they're just very willful. As far as social encounters go, I feel like you can talk to them and you can hire them. I also feel like they are evil and they will eat your bones.
Sure. No, I'm with you.
These guys sit solidly with the
Yugoloths.
Yugoloths,
Yeah.
right? That it's the
They
same.
could be mercenaries.
It's the same conversation. It's just a little bit rarer, and it's for the ones that embrace this.
An interesting plot hook that I would like to talk about with these guys is them being, and you're going to hate me for this, Adam, but I'm going to go for it anyways, a small troop of mercenaries. I want to make them gnomes or halflings. I want to make them small. And they are all Wereboar. And the second that they get into a fight, they shift into their hybrid form and just tear shit apart.
Sure. Why are they small?
It's not what you expect, right? Like whenever you get these smaller mobs, you always expect them to be spellcasters or rangers or something like that. But these guys are going to mix in with a gore attack.
All right. So here's something else that I want to point out. Fine. You do you with this. This is fun. When it comes down to the social encounter, one of the things that had occurred to me before the episode that I just remembered was, do you know what a group of boars is called?
Isn't it like a hutch or something?
No. A group of hogs is a passel or a team. A group of swine is a sounder. but a group of boars is called a singular. So you can tell people that there is a singular of boars out there, and everyone's going to think, oh, there's one.
That's so weird.
Isn't that weird? Yeah, I don't know why I knew that ahead of time, but it's just, I think it's a fun way to throw your players off the freaking scent, is if they come across some scrawled thing about the singular boars or whatever.
Yeah.
They're going to be expecting one, but no, motherfucker, there's 8. There's 6 of these guys. So anyway, I just want to reach out and thank everybody that's been a part of this process up to this point. We're on episode 15 of these mobs.
Yeah.
Which is intense and insane. And I am I'm having mob fatigue at this point.
I honestly think I'm shocked that we're on 15. I thought we've done more of these things.
Oh, it feels like it, right?
Yeah.
But we've covered so many freaking creatures. And honestly, you can tell I'm going insane about it. You saw the April Fool's Day nonsense.
I did. Thanks for all of those messages I got asking if Adam was okay. I really appreciate. So Adam calls me today as we're getting ready to record, and like I said earlier, this is April 1st. He goes, "Hey, so I made that Instagram post, and I was going to tell you about it at 6 a.m. I had a whole message typed up, but I guess I got distracted and forgot to hit send. So April Fools, I'm like, it's 6 o'clock in the evening. I know that you made the Instagram post because I got so many messages.
Good.
Like, so many people going, is Adam okay? And I'm like, guys, it's April 1st. Like, how do I... Yeah, Adam's fine.
Good.
I'm not. Thanks for asking.
Also good.
No one asked me if I'm okay.
Good.
I'm okay, everybody. But, that was a day. Anyways, I do want to remind everybody that you can reach Adam through Facebook or Instagram or r/it's-a-mimic. You can reach me as well, but I felt like I didn't have to say it because you all just demonstrated to me that you know how to reach me through these sources today after Adam's April Fool's joke.
The subreddit got a little active too.
Yeah, it did. It did. A lot of people going, is this... Guys? Nah, Adam's fine. Adam's good.
We even got Brad with it for a half second.
Oh, God. Like, is Adam all right? It's April Fool's, Brad. Come on, man. Anyways, if you want to go the more traditional route, you can reach us through our email at info@itsamimic.com. Because April Fools aside, we do love hearing from you guys. So send us some questions. We got some mailbags coming up as well, and we do need more questions for them. So any of the social media, email, send that to us. So moving on, Terry is the last coverage we have today, and he is back out at the Green Dragon Inn, and he's going to talk about the Werebear.
Kind of.
Okay, well, thanks, Adam and Dan, for passing it over to me. Okay, I'm talking to you guys about Werebears. So, lycanthropy. So we know lycanthropy in that we've heard and seen movies and these legends and books. We know about the werewolves running across the Yorkshire moors every time the moon gets full, and if they bite you, you're going to turn into one of them. What's interesting in the D&D world is that a remove curse spell, if you've been bitten by another lycanthrope, a remove curse spell will remove that curse. It'll do just that. You will no longer be afflicted by that. But if you're born of lycanthrope parents, for example, if both of your parents are werebears, it's only a wish spell that can get rid of that. And DMs, that's important to incorporate into your game, because we've shared frustrations before on the podcast that it's too easy to get rid of it with a remove curse spell, but yet we don't see the same kind of thing for creatures such as vampires. So include that into your game. It's going to be important. What's also important about werebears in particular is that they are loners, as bears are, and they are less likely to interact with humanoids. They're going to try and stay away. They're going to protect their territory, the other creatures and the plants and the fauna that's in there and the environment, but they're going to be less keen to come and interact with people. And also what's a part of them is that they're less likely to turn people into werebears as well. So consequently, they avoid using their bite attack. That's important to know, because it's part of the multi-attack, and it's going to be something that they choose not to do. And for the more observant players, or with a good insight check, or with a good passive insight, you'll notice that the werebear is deliberately not biting you and is trying to avoid bringing its teeth close to you. The only time that they'll turn somebody is if it's agreed upon, as if, it's like a Shrek and a Princess Fiona type situation, if they're going to go off and be werebears in the woods together forever, or for another type of agreement, but they're less likely to do it of their own accord. Typically, werebears are good aligned. Again, don't be married to that. There's any number of reasons why a werebear may not be good aligned, you know. You're not going to be good aligned if somebody burned your house down. I'm sure you'll soon forget that those values then. But let's take a look at the stats. And before we go into this, I just want to point out, remember, team, that a bear is not a bear is not a bear. Bears, as we know in the real world, are very different to one another. A polar bear is nothing like a black bear. Absolutely nothing like a black bear at all. But I'm going to use the brown bear stats right here just to keep it simple. Large beast, unaligned. Remember, we're not married to that. They have natural armor, and so that's going to give like an average type of AC. It's going to be a little beefier than the person that it's fighting. Hit points, 4d10 plus 12. That averages out at 34. Higher ground speed, of course. It's a brown bear. Okay, 40 feet for the ground speed. When we see their stats, their physical stats typically are higher, with very high strength. You got a much higher constitution. This makes sense. Something I will argue is that their dexterity is average here. Their dexterity is on par with a regular life human being. I do not believe that. I don't believe that, but we have to go along with it in the game, right? Because bears, it's energy conservation. They move slowly. If a bear wants to be on you, it will be on you before you know what day of the week it is. It will have hit you 12 times and ripped out your jugular before you even know what's going on. For anybody who's ever stepped foot into Canada, you know a black bear can climb a tree faster than a house cat. That is not of average dexterity. However, that's what the stats say, and so that's what we go with in the game. Okay, for the brown bear, for the mental stats, I'll let you guys know. Of course, their intelligence is low. It's going to be very low. Yeah, they're instinctual and they're aware of the world around them, but you know they're still chewing sticks, and black bears are choosing to go through your garbage cans to find their food, so maybe not too intelligent. Wisdom's going to be higher than average, but their charisma is going to be a little bit lower as well. Skills is going to be perception. Passive perception of 13. They don't speak any languages. I don't feel the need to say that. Challenge rating of 1. They have keen smell, so the bear has advantage on wisdom perception checks that rely on smell. Multi-attack. That's going to include 2 attacks, one with its bite, one with its claws. Remember, we're talking about werebears here that are significantly less likely to use that bite attack unless they need to defend themselves. Remember, if you're not playing them as good aligned, they may not be married to that idea. But let's now think about how these werebears are going to be different based on the kind of bear that they are. And this is something to explore. You know, you can have a polar werebear, but polar bears are very methodical and vicious killers. They're hunters. They're very different to black bears that are typically, Canadian black bears are typically scavengers. However, polar bears, they're not surrounded by too many trees. But let's use a grizzly bear for an example here. Grizzly bears are not usually bouncing up and down trees like black bears are. Black bears, their personality and their way that they operate, it's like closer to a raccoon than anything else. It's just a big raccoon that if it decides that it wants to kill you, it will kill you. But if you make a lot of noise, you're likely to deter it, and it'll probably move away rather than deal with you. So people where we live in Canada, where we live in British Columbia, there's like cougars and bears and stuff coming into people's yards. And the place I live called Maple Ridge, there was what was here the other day? A bobcat walked into somebody's yard down the street. That's just life here. That's what we operate with. But if you make a lot of noise, a black bear will typically go away. If you make a lot of noise, a grizzly bear will go, oh, well, thank you very much for letting me know that you're there. I'm going to eat you ass first while you're still alive. And it will. Nothing dies of old age in nature, people. But that's werebears. The part of the game that I want to explore here is how a different kind of werebear is going to be different based on the type of bear that it is. And what's important to note is that it's typically human. We can play with different types of humanoids. They're going to take on the appearance and the characteristics over time of that type of bear that they are. They may increase in size in their human form. They may start to get a little bit hairier. I don't mean like they're going to start to look like Beast of X-Men. I mean that they're going to start to look more like a cartoon lumberjack is what I'm thinking, you know, where previously they might have been like the scrawny Captain America type. But yeah, so think about how not only the breed of bear that they are, but also how that's going to fit in with their alignment as well. Typically more good aligned, but not necessarily. Remember, just because somebody is a polar bear werebear and they're a vicious hunter doesn't mean that they're not good aligned. You know, it may just be more neutral. Bears gotta eat. Bears gotta eat, okay? Okay, so that's werebears from me. I'm going to hand it back over Adam and Dan. Another great area to explore there. A bear is not a bear is not a bear.
Okay, so first of all, he said specifically about how he's heard about werewolves on the Yorkshire moors.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a British, like, are werewolves tied to British, like, is there a flavor of that?
A lot of
research?
British lore comes from Roman lore.
I know that they're very tied
together. But yeah, no, there are multiple legends of a werewolf-like creature that roams the moors.
That's cool. I
Through
like that.
Scotland and England together.
Yeah,
right?
okay.
Now, of all the creatures in this episode, this one is the one that seems to break the mold a little bit. This one is neutral good with its alignment.
Yeah, I feel like people tinker with that so that you can have more werebear fights.
Honestly, I think it's because they try to have a Viking feel to these guys. And I don't know why I associate that, but like that
I don't know why either.
That very Norse feel of like the berserkers becoming like the bear just sticks to me as a very Norse feel.
It's fine. I get Native American tribe.
Oh yeah, okay, I could see that too.
Bear warriors and whatnot.
Yep, I get that. I mean, especially in our local tribes, that's a big thing.
Speaking of bear warriors, I'm just no, hold on.
I don't want to know about the movies you watch on your own time, Adam.
Hey, you know what? If two men can't have fun by themselves, then what kind of... Anyway, no, look. So, wererats.
Wearing only their skin in the olive oil that God gave them.
So, no, it was from Jesus, but he was a Mexican guy behind the KFC.
Oh,
anyway, yeah.
I know him well.
Anyway, wererats. So, you know, these guys, all lycanthropes, when they transform, they don't carry their items with them. That includes clothes, right? Werewolves and wereboars tend to be out in the wilderness and whatnot, but wererats do not. They will often transform into rat form to get through these little holes and tunnels and pipes and whatnot. Are there just a bunch of naked wererats all over the place? Or do you think that there would be little bags, like little burlap sacks full of clothes littered all throughout the sewers? And that's an indication that wererats are near.
100% I think that would be. Yeah.
I just think that that's really fun, flavorful. Like,
and not just throughout the sewers, like in strategic places and alleys.
Oh, yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, even like back storerooms where people don't go.
Oh, that's really cool as a way to like tip your players off really early, that even if before they know it's a lycanthrope thing, like they're fighting an alley and like one player gets knocked back into the alley and like there are just bags of clothes that they fall into.
Yeah, I really like that. We said earlier that it's hard to track wererats. This is an indication, not necessarily their roots or whatnot, but that they're nearby. And this is also how I would, without it being sexual, include like the idea of nudity and a more adult theme to this. Good, like the wererat, a rat pops out and all of a sudden, bam! There's a naked guy standing in front of you, going, "Hold on," and then he like reaches into a bag behind the dumpster and pulls out pants. Right? Like,
I like that, but I also like the idea that I don't know why when I think of wererats in their human forms, I think of Rowan Atkinson.
All right. That's fucking okay.
But like, I just like a naked Rowan Atkinson appearing before your party.
That is the third time you have mentioned naked Rowan Atkinson today, Dan, and I'm frankly concerned.
It's actually been like 5, but I guess you tuned out the other 2.
Yeah. Yes, I did. Okay, so anyway, let's talk about how Terry got all worked up about the idea of bears that you could be, because he totally freaking missed everything else about the werebear. I think he was channeling Dave with his excitement of like the outdoors and knowing about bears.
I know bear shit.
Yeah, but probably literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
So really quickly, let me go through it. Their AC is 10, 11 in hybrid or bear form. Their hit points are 18d8 plus 54. Speed is 30 feet. 40 feet in bear or hybrid form with a climb of 30 feet in bear or hybrid form as well. Man, I'm just pissed off the wererat doesn't get down to 20.
Yep.
Right? Like we've seen everything else. Perception is +7, so their passive perception will be 17. They get the same immunity nonsense and shape changer info as everyone else, except when it has a shape changer, they change into large size, and their AC bumps up by 1.
I'm with it.
I feel like it should bump up more than that because 11 is not high enough, but that's just me. And of course, they get keen smell as well. They do not get the keen hearing that some of the others do. Its multi-attack has 2 options: 2 claws if it's a bear, 2 great axe if it's a humanoid, or you can pick one or the other if it's in hybrid form. You don't get to do a great axe and a claw because, of course, a great axe is two-handed.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep, and it also has a bite attack, which is not included in the multi-attack, and all attacks are melee with a 5-foot reach and a +7 to hit. The claws do 2d8 plus 4, the great axe does 1d12 plus 4, and the bite does a whopping 2d10 plus 4, and has that DC 14 con save to avoid becoming cursed. I feel like the bite not being a part of the multi-attack leans into the lore that they don't want to pass this on.
No, this seems like a banner that warrior must wear, right? And they understand what it is, and they will hold it to themselves, and they will use it when they need to. But it is definitely like it is restrained in that regard.
I like the idea of Werebears not wanting to do that. I also like that this flips it on its head, where if you've got an evil campaign and someone gets bitten by a Werebear, they may turn good.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, I do like that.
Do you think that evil creatures would hunt them for their saliva to turn more Werebears?
No. Is it the saliva that carries the curse?
Well, I mean, fuck, yes, except for boars, apparently. Fuck, like, it's always bite, it's never claw. In werewolf mythology, you can get slashed and it will turn you.
Yeah.
But not in D&D. It's always, your mouth stuff. Anyway, so as far as the player character stuff goes, we get the strength bump up to 19 if it isn't that high already. The +1 to AC, of course.
Yeah.
But only in bear or hybrid form.
Everything's based off strength like it was before.
Yeah, and if you embrace the lycanthropy, you become neutral good. I feel like that one doesn't matter so much.
No.
This is why I mean, like people are not going to... They're going to fuck with alignment a little bit more with the werebear than they would for the others. They're going to say, no, you have to be evil, you're a werewolf. But they're going to be like, you were lawful neutral before, it doesn't matter.
Okay, so let's grab our dice one last time here. Let's talk about mob structures for these guys. Got a 4.
14.
God
you just
Yep.
suck.
No,
you
I'm
suck. You suck. Mob structure, solo.
Oh, 100%.
Like, this is the mob that isn't a mob, right?
This is the guy that lives in the woods by himself.
This is the Hobbit.
Yeah.
What's his name? Bjorn. Which is just so on the nose. It hurts.
I have a feeling that that's where a lot of my...
Is Tom Bombadil a Furbolg?
100% he is.
Huh. Or is he more Fey than that? He could be
Furbolg are very Fey-based.
Well, traditionally, not so much a 5th ed.
You look... not even in 5th ed. Like...
I just feel like he's more
we see a lot of the art from Furbolg.
Bjorn.
Yeah, Bjorn.
Bjorn. Okay, so look, werebears. Yeah, they're solo, and they're going to be helpful, but they're also going to warn you away. I am a danger.
Yeah.
I am cursed. You do not want to be with me.
I understand that you are in the woods and that you may need respite. You will not find respite here, my friend. Go there. It is far safer for you.
Yeah,
this is not a safe place.
Or you're fine here until the full moon. Because then they become a bear, which is unaligned and would eat. But I mean, like, even then, you got a decent chance of just not getting hit. I feel like of all of them, werebears are the ones that got cursed by a hag.
Funny enough, I would have... my werebears are almost never going to be a combat encounter. I mean, players are going to play her. They might attack them.
Yeah.
But they're not there to be they're there to be the MacGuffin, right? Your player has to go and find the werebear because you need something from him. He is a protector of something, right? Some sort of...
I'm sorry. I love the idea of them going to, like, we're going to go get a werebear skin rug. I'm like, no, man, just go skin a human. When they die,
they revert to their human form.
Yeah. And now I like the idea of there's a hag with a lamp in the corner. The lampshade is made of human flesh. She swears it was a werewolf. But you're probably not.
Gross. Anyways, Adam, is there anything else about where the base level PHB lycanthropes that we can talk about here that you want to bring up? Do you like how 5e represents lycanthropes? Is there a change other than boosting them in CR that you would do?
I don't like what 5th Ed has done. I would kind of reinvent this from the ground up, starting with the spell. I make it a unique spell, like I said earlier. Lycanthropes have their place, have their purpose, but they're their own unique thing that when you say, hey, we're doing werewolves in D&D, you have to explain to your players what the fuck that means, because it's not Wolfman.
No.
Right? It's not Underworld. It's not Twilight. It's not whatever they're used to seeing.
It's an amalgamation of all of it.
Yeah, and a whole lot of none of it, right? And they have taken away some of the stuff that you really rely on. If we can get into the idea of the Night Hag, what is it, the Soul Bag.
Yeah.
And we've got the Red Cap's Iron Boots and stuff. There should have been a section on silvered weapons in this.
Yes, I
right
agree.
in the monster manual here, because it's so tied into everything. But I mean, by the time that you are level 5, you're fighting a werebear, you got Fireball. You don't need a silvered sword.
No. Basically all it does is neuter your fighter characters.
Yep.
And highlight your spellcasters on something that should be a high-lit martial fight.
All right, so I got one final question for you.
Sure.
Werewolves and wolves go hand in hand. You can picture a werebear with a bear sidekick.
Yes.
Wereboars and wererats. Where do you land?
Wereboars with pigs? 100%. They are. You said they were a small family out in the woods somewhere? Yeah. What do? They raise boar.
I think they raise swine, and they probably fucking eat it, because it's not cannibalism. They're farmers out in the...
Yeah.
Right? And it's almost hey, if we have trespassers in here, we can become them and hide with the other pigs,
Yeah.
right? Like... And
rats, I don't think rats, like wererats, intentionally surround themselves with other rats. Like, they're not the Rat King from the comics.
As a matter of fact, I think that they probably fucking avoid them, because wererats tend to be poor. They live in the dark, dank sections where rats are going to be in there eating their food and pissing and shitting and all this other stuff. Defouling the wererat. Like, I think that that's the one where they don't associate.
Honestly, I know we said a lot that wererats are the ones who are in the grime. They're in the guck. They're in the sewer. Like, that... Nah, man. I see a wererat embracing it, but dude lives a life of luxury.
But I think in the sewer. Like, I'm thinking Thieves Guild, where you have got to go, like, you're splashing through the sewer, and then all of a sudden you walk into the Cave of Wonders.
Oh, yeah.
Right, because I'm thinking more Thieves Guild. And
it's just like a hybrid form wererat with a gigantic paunch and a sideways crown.
I wasn't going that far. Again, I don't play Looney Tunes D&D.
I'm not saying... Well...
But you absolutely... Look, it
there's
fits
a
by
way
the
to
lore.
do that image seriously, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think that you could have a group of 120 wererats down there, all working together for... what was his name? Fabian and Oliver Twist?
Yes.
Right? Like, there was the leader of the thieves. That's what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't have the crown on dangling off of one ear, Tom and Jerry style.
Right. No, I'm not saying dangling off one ear, but like sideways on his head. Like, there's a relaxed nature to them, right? Like, I
don't know. I think the leader of the wererats, the Lawful Evil wererats, the leader is probably the most uptight. I don't think he's got a crown. I think you just fucking know.
He's the mob boss?
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Anyways, that will be a decent portion of what we can find in 5e on Lycanthropes. But we are only half done, Adam. Don't forget to come back next week when we uncover another 5 kinds of were creatures that are hidden around the moonlit corners of Dungeons and Dragons. That'll be it for this episode of the It's a Mimic podcast. If you'd like to support us, you can head on over to www.itsamimic.com and smash that little donate button. Or you can tell your friends and the rest of your D&D party about the podcast. We're available on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube, as well as most podcast apps. Stay safe out there, and just stay safe out there. Stay safe out there.
You all like,
boom! Stay safe out there, guys.
Thank you for listening to another It's a Mimic production. Inquiries, shoutouts, requests, and mailbag questions can be sent to info@itsamimic.com.
So to wrap up the episode, I have one question for you, Adam and Dan. And that is, which movie best represents lycanthropy, and why is it Van Helsing, starring Hugh Jackman and Kate Beckinsale?
Fuck you, Brad. Van Helsing sucked.
It did. Except for Kate Beckinsale.
It's Beckinsale. You added the D this time, because that's what you want to do with her. That's the only reason you watch those movies. Look, Van Helsing was not. I'm so mad. All right, Dan, roll for it. Best werewolf movie.
15.
Okay, so now after the post credits,
Wolfman.
the original Lon Chaney Jr.
Yeah. I mean, it does not get better than that. I mean, Werewolf in London for the changing form, like that transition is great. The Underworld movies are great for that visual of the snout growing. But in terms of the horror, the anxiety of a Wolfman, it's got to be Wolfman.
I really liked. I'm going to go to TV for a second. I really did like what Supernatural did for their werewolves.
I agree.
Because there was that level of control if you denied it and whatnot. And if you didn't feed, then you didn't. If you never fed on human flesh, you wouldn't succumb to the. There's a lot of good stuff you could pull for your D&D in there. I also like the Benicio del Toro and Anthony Hopkins Wolfman movie was bad, but the transformation scene was pretty cool.
It was badass, yeah.
Strangely enough, my favorite Wolfman is not a wolf. Is not a werewolf at all. It's a really bad movie, but they did a really neat thing with it. You know the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen?
I was wondering about, yeah.
With the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde.
Yep.
When he goes Mr. Hyde, he wolfs out, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
He does get big and hairy, and there's a transformation, and he becomes more feral and stuff. And that's what I kind of see for the transition just before you hit wolf, like hybrid status.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I like that. I don't think that there's a perfect one. American Werewolf in Paris or London.
Yeah.
Both great.
Yes.
Both wonderful. Ginger Snaps is weird. It's Canadian. It's not fantastic,
I
but
forgot about Ginger Snaps, yeah.
it's not bad. Like, I thought it was okay. Cursed is the worst fucking movie of all time. I think Christina Ricci's in it. I saw it in theaters when I was like 16 and knew then it was bad. Like, it was... Even
with Christina Ricci in it?
I fucking love Christina Ricci. She's one of my favorite actors, and not for a Kate Beckinsale reason. So, but that movie was fucking terrible. Just fuck. Now I'm angry again. Now I'm goddamn angry.
What else is new, Adam?
Okay, well, thanks, Adam and Dan, for passing it over to me. I'm going to talk to you guys about Werebears for the second time. You guys don't know, I just recorded my entire segment, and I was frustrated because people kept calling me on my phone as I was trying to do my recording, and I think that frustration came out during my recording because I missed half of the stats that I was supposed to report on, which is the only reason that I'm here. So I can't imagine what I was talking about. I've deleted the recording, so nobody will ever know.
Also, I would like to report that you can actually hear my neighbors stomping around. Little side story for you guys. We just got new neighbors who fucking walk like elephants. And the neighbor on the other side is now starting to complain, which makes us feel better. But yeah, so sorry if you hear footsteps stomping. I will do my best to try and hear it over the microphone and stop if it happens. So, any damn whoozle.
Thank you for listening to an It's a Mimic production.
Okay, you're done. Get it.